Chapter 30-36. Swoosh. Zhenhong sat cross-legged, closing both eyes to revolve and cultivate. Her entire body bloomed with soaring golden light, emitting sacred dragon aura undulations. Dazzling golden light boiled and surged, condensing into the scene of 9 golden dragons circling and dancing. Such a gorgeous scene was precisely the light and shadow of her divine Tao foundation condensing and breaking through to the 4th-level divine Lord realm. She suppressed the surprise and excitement that filled her, trying her best to maintain calm, revolving and stabilizing her foundation and divine power. This breakthrough made her become a middle-level divine lord. Not only did her strength advance by leaps and bounds, her divine Tao also underwent a change. Successfully awakening the dragon god bloodline, her divine Tao cultivation would be a smooth path in the future. Furthermore, how far she could walk on the path of divine Tao, what peak she could climb to, there were also limitless possibilities. A true nirvanic rebirth, shedding one's mortal body and exchanging one's bones. As for the white dragon, expended 90% of his divine power and soul force, and even paid with 18 dragon race ultimate arts. His complexion was already pale as paper, his entire body dripping with sweat, sprawled on the ground like a pile of mud, gasping for breath. Ah! I feel like my body has been hollowed out. Even if he was so tired, he also did not forget to be mischievous. He even blinked at Ji Tianqing and transmitted his voice weakly, "Master, this disciple is filial enough, right? For your fortune, this disciple made such a great sacrifice. If you don't arrange a few beautiful little female dragons for this disciple in the future, it would be letting down this disciple's painstaking efforts." Ji Tianqing glared at him huffily. "Shut up, you, return to the divine pagoda and recuperate properly." Finished talking, he manipulated the 9 heavens 10 absolute pagoda and put the white dragon away into the distorted spacetime. Thinking for a while, he took out a large pile of monarch-ranked divine pills and source stones and threw them beside the white dragon to express comfort and reward. After that, he quietly left the secret chamber. Zhenhong stayed in the secret chamber and continued to revolve and regulate his breathing, stabilizing his foundation. 4 hours later, the sun had risen. A new day had arrived. Ji Tianqing was currently resting in the room when the guard outside reported that the 3rd prince came to visit. Hence, Ji Tianqing got up and headed to the study to meet the 3rd prince. The two of them greeted each other and took their respective seats. The 3rd prince smiled and said, "Mr. Tianqing, the divine blood ceremony is about to begin. How are your preparations going?" Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Of course, no problem. I can join the battle at any time." The 3rd prince waved his hand and said with a chuckle, "That won't be necessary. This year's divine blood ceremony will be organized by this prince." Today was the first day. There would be a grand ceremony. It would take a long time before the arena competition would begin. Moreover, the arena competition on the first day was only to determine the top 30. This prince has already made arrangements for you. You don't need to participate in today's competition. You can directly enter the top 30. Tomorrow morning will be the time for you to show your prowess and suppress everyone. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "3rd prince, I have something to ask of you. If you have something to say, just say it." The 3rd prince nodded without hesitation. Ji Tianqing asked, "For those who want to participate in the Challenge Arena tournament, the registration ended yesterday, right?" The 3rd prince nodded and said, "That's right. The registration condition is to reach the Divine Lord realm within 1,000 years of age. There are not many people who meet this condition, and all of them are famous geniuses. In the entire Divine Kingdom, there are no more than 500 people, right? As of yesterday evening, there were a total of 181 people who signed up." Ji Tianqing nodded and said, "Can you do me a favor and add the name of Miss Zhenhong?" The 3rd prince suddenly frowned and said with a startled face, "Miss Zhenhong also wants to participate in the arena competition. This, is her idea, or your decision?" Ji Tianqing did not answer. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is there a problem?" The third prince spread his hands and said indifferently, "Although Miss Zhenhong meets the registration conditions and can be considered a genius with outstanding talent. But in every arena competition, those geniuses who can enter the top 10 are all middle-level divine lords. Even if she participates, it is impossible for her to enter the top 10 and she will be seriously injured. This is meaningless and will affect the normal affairs of the Longwind courtyard." Ji Tianqing said with a chuckle, "Just last night, she broke through to the 4th stage and became a middle-level divine lord." Ah! The third prince was shocked and showed an expression of disbelief. How is this possible? Didn't she just get seriously injured and her injuries have not even healed? How did he manage to break through the 4th stage realm in just one night? Ji Tianqing was about to explain the whole story. At this time, the voice of the guard came from outside the door. Reporting to young Master Tianqing, "Miss Zhenhong requests an audience." Ji Tianqing looked at the third prince and said with a smile, "Since she is here, you should see for yourself." As his voice fell, Zhenhong, who was wearing a red armor, stepped into the study. When she stepped through the door of the study, she had to bend down to avoid hitting the door bar. After all, this door was designed for the divine race and was only 10 feet tall. Chapter 30-37. For a long time, Zhenhong had always obeyed orders. Her personality was simple, kind, courageous, and determined. The third prince couldn't understand how Ji Tianqing could capture Zhenhong's heart in just a few days. With Ji Tianqing present, he, the real master, seemed superfluous. So embarrassing. Could it be that Zhenhong became like this and became a mid-level divine lord because of Ji Tianqing? Thinking of this, the third prince was even more shocked and felt that it was incredible. "Young Master Tianqing, how did you do it?" He stared at Ji Tianqing with a burning gaze, his eyes full of amazement. Ji Tianqing said with an indifferent expression, "This is her original appearance, it's just that she hasn't awakened. What I did was just to give her a push and help her awaken sooner." Although he said it casually, the third prince was well aware of how miraculous this was. He saved Zhenhong and devoted hundreds of years to cultivate her, but he didn't see the problem with Zhenhong's bloodline. As a result, Ji Tianqing helped Zhenhong awaken after only a few days. This was a real powerhouse. Awesome! After holding back for a long time, the third prince could only use these 2 words to describe Ji Tianqing. The noble prince who spoke elegantly actually said such vulgar words. One could imagine how big of an impact this matter had on him. After calming himself down, the third prince said expectantly, "Since young master has helped Zhenhong and given her such an opportunity, then she will definitely be able to soar to the sky in this competition. Let's go watch the ceremony together. This prince will add Zhenhong's name and see how amazing her performance is." The 3 of them didn't delay any longer and hurriedly left the study and walked out. At the gate of Changfeng courtyard, the third prince's carriage was already waiting. 8 white-winged Pegasi pulled a large and luxurious carriage, accompanied by hundreds of people. The third prince, Ji Tianqing, Zhenhong, and others boarded the carriage one by one and drove toward the city square. Along the way, they passed through several wide streets, which were bustling with noise and excitement. There were people everywhere. Gods of all shapes and sizes were jostling shoulder to shoulder. Countless commoners and gods converged into a surging tide and surged toward the plaza in the center of the city. It was very difficult to travel on the road, so 8 Pegasus pulled the carriage into the sky. Not long after, the carriage arrived at the plaza in the middle of the city. As early as 2 days ago, the venue in the square had been set up. At this moment, the square with a radius of tens of miles was already packed with people. At a glance, it looked like an endless tide. The square was surrounded by empty space. Ordinary citizens and protoss could only watch the ceremony from the ground. In the center of the square, there was an arena with a radius of 10 miles, enveloped by a sky-blue ball of light. Directly above the arena, there was a ceremonial platform with a radius of 3,000 feet. The decorations were sacred and solemn. There were hundreds of imperial guards guarding the ring and the ceremonial stage. Around the square, there were also tens of thousands of armored and sword-wielding guards standing there like statues. The presence of the imperial guards was like an invisible shackle, making everyone behave and not dare to cause trouble. Around the ceremonial stage, there were 4 viewing platforms suspended in the air in the 4 directions of north, south, east, and west. The viewing platforms were spacious and comfortable, and could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Only the relatives of the emperor, the upper-class nobles, and famous experts were qualified to sit on the platforms to watch the ceremony. When the third prince's carriage arrived, there was a burst of cheers and discussion in the square. After all, the second prince and the third prince had been fighting for many years. Both of them had done everything they could to create a glorious image in the court and among the commoners. They had a large number of supporters. The carriage flew to the northern viewing platform and stopped. The third prince, Ji Tianqing, and the others walked out one by one. When they saw Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong, countless commoners, protoss, and nobles looked at them curiously. Most people did not recognize Ji Tianqing, nor did they recognize Zhen Hong, who had just completed his transformation. Everyone was puzzled. Who were these 2 people? Why were they with the third prince? Were they from the hidden nobles? Or were they disciples of the big sects or aristocratic families that did not show themselves? Or were they the top geniuses that the third prince had just recruited? After everyone was seated, the carriage left. This viewing platform was in the best position. It could overlook the entire square and see the ceremonial stage and the arena clearly. Only the relatives of the emperor and important officials of the country were qualified to sit there. The second prince and his subordinates had already taken their seats on the viewing platform. Over 100 people were seated around the second prince, and they were chatting in low voices. Seeing the third prince arrive, the second prince did not look at him. But he nodded at Ji Tianqing and greeted him in a subtle way. At this time, the viewing platforms in the east, west, and south were already full. There were not many seats left. The third prince first found the officiator in charge of the ceremony and quietly added Zhen Hong's name. Then, seeing that the time was almost up, he got up and flew to the ceremonial stage. The second prince, the princesses, and the idle lords of the older generation followed him to the ceremonial stage. There were more than 20 people, all of whom were direct descendants of the Duanmu family. They were also the most distinguished members of the royal family. Everyone was dressed in splendid clothes. They looked dignified and solemn as they lined up on the ceremonial stage. Then, as the host of the ceremony, the third prince began to read the divine scripture and the imperial edict. This series of content was not only tedious and lengthy, but also difficult to understand. But the general meaning was nothing more than to describe the significance of the divine blood ceremony and let the people remember the deeds of the martyrs. Ji Tianqing listened absent-mindedly. His eyes swept across the many members of the royal family and found something interesting. The fifth prince did not attend today's ceremony. Ha! It seems that the boy's injuries are too serious and the poison has not been removed. Also, his legs were crippled by me. He looks too pathetic and is not suitable to attend such an occasion. Since that is the case, would the king still appoint a prince who has lost his power in his legs as the crown prince of the divine kingdom? As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a playful smile. He subconsciously turned his head and looked around. He saw a familiar face in the center of the eastern viewing platform. As always, he was wearing a black dragon robe with golden threads and a luxurious golden crown. His face was fair and handsome. It was Prince Lien. When he looked at Prince Lien also sensed his gaze and looked at him with a cold gaze. Their eyes met. Both of them had cold expressions and sharp gazes. The hostility and murderous intent in their eyes made the people around them feel cold and couldn't help but tremble. Zhen Hong was next to him. Sensing the abnormality, he looked at Prince Lien in confusion. He lowered his head and asked Ji Tianqing through telepathy, "Young master, what's wrong? Is that person your enemy?" Ji Tianqing looked away and nodded calmly. Zhen Hong pursed his lips and said firmly through telepathy, "Young master, please consider the overall situation and be patient for the time being. After the divine blood ceremony, Zhen Hong will definitely help you eliminate the enemy." Ji Tianqing showed a hint of surprise and asked with a chuckle, "Do you know who that person is?" P.S. Readers, I am He Wuhan. I recommend a free app that supports downloading, listening to books, zero ads, and multiple reading modes. Please follow, book friends, quickly follow. Chapter 30-38. Zhen Hong shook her head. Obviously, with her identity and status, she could not come into contact with Prince Lien. Ji Tianqing smiled and comforted her. "Don't think too much. Just do your own thing." Zhen Hong pursed her lips and did not say anything. She knew that she was still too weak to help young Master Tianqing. She silently made up her mind to live up to young Master Tianqing's expectations. She had to become a powerful high-level divine lord in the shortest time possible. She could not tarnish the reputation of the dragon gods. In the blink of an eye, an hour passed. After the third prince finished reading the divine Bible and the edict, he led the royal family members to kneel and kowtow to the spirits of their ancestors. After this series of tedious things were done, the royal family members left. Then, the arena competition that the Million God clan members and commoners were looking forward to the most was finally about to begin. The second prince and the third prince stayed on the stage. The third prince announced with a solemn expression and a booming voice, "I will be the host of this year's divine blood ceremony. Second brother and everyone will supervise the entire process. Now, I announce the start of the arena competition. A total of 182 young elites have signed up for this year's divine blood ceremony. The competition will be decided by drawing lots. 2 people will fight in public. The loser will be eliminated and the winner will advance. In the process of the competition, it is strictly forbidden to borrow external forces, to have deaths, and to cheat." The third prince announced the rules of the competition. In fact, it was no different from the arena competition of previous divine blood ceremonies. The millions of Protoss present were well aware of the rules and regulations. After the ceremony, the drawing of lots began. The third prince took out 152 golden jade slips and threw them into the sky. Each jade slip flashed with golden light and flew in the sky, forming a huge ball of light. The appearance and aura of these jade slips were exactly the same. The only difference was the name engraved on the jade slips. When the jade slips filled the sky and danced for a while, the order was completely disrupted. Even the third prince could not remember them clearly. The second prince finally made his move. He kept shooting out beams of divine light and pulled out jade slips from the golden ball of light. The first battle, Jia Ni from Xianshui Commandery vs Gu Changfeng from Chunyang Commandery. The second battle was between Lu Gu from Tongwen County and Li Su from Black Wind County. The third match is from. Every time he drew out 2 jade slips, the second prince would open them and read out the names on the jade slips. Behind him was an imperial army commander who was in charge of recording the participants and the order in which they fought. As for the god race commoners in the square, every time they heard the name of a young genius, there would be a burst of exclamations and discussions. Obviously, the young geniuses who were qualified to participate in the grand competition all had quite a reputation among the common people. After a long time, when the second prince read the 71st battle, he frowned slightly and glanced at the third prince from the corner of his eye. But he didn't say anything and just announced loudly as usual, "The 71st battle, Zhenhong from Blood Flame County versus Tang Yu from Dark Blood County. Obviously, the second prince knew that Zhenhong was not on the list. Now that she was on the list, it was most likely added by the third prince at the last minute. Although this was not in line with the rules and was a form of favoritism. But he and the third prince were not gentlemen and had done this kind of thing countless times. He wouldn't use this trivial matter to attack the third prince. He just couldn't understand what the third prince was doing. He actually let the captain of the Last Wind Courtyard participate in this grand competition. Wasn't this looking for a beating? When the time comes, they would lose miserably, lose face for the Last Wind Courtyard and slap the third prince's face. Perhaps, the third prince would become the laughingstock of the royal city. After reading the battle list, the second prince put down all the jade slips. He and the third prince stood on the ceremonial stage to supervise the grand competition. The sky blue defensive light shield under their feet also opened a door. Two young talents flew out of the crowd and went up to the arena to start the battle. Those two were Jia Ni and Gu Changfeng. As the first battle of this grand competition, the two were under a lot of pressure in front of millions of people and were very cautious. First, they probed each other and attacked. After hundreds of moves back and forth, they tested each other's details and began to speed up the pace of their attacks. For the millions of gods and the common people, the battle between the two was very exciting and attracted cheers from time to time. However, the nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms did not react to it at all. As for the two princes on the ceremonial stage, they didn't even have the interest to take a second look. After all, the strength of the two young geniuses was only at the second level of the Divine Lord realm. The second prince was bored, so he turned his head to look at the third prince and asked with a faint smile, "Is it necessary to spend so much money and take such a big risk for a captain of the maidservants?" The third prince certainly understood what he was talking about. He was not angry. He smiled confidently and pretended to be unfathomable. "How can you guess this king's mind?" The second prince curled his lips and sneered, "With your little mind. Do you really think this king doesn't understand? Isn't it just a honey trap to win over young Master Tianqing? However, this king really admires you. In just one day, you transformed Zhenhong into that appearance. When Zhenhong entered the arena just now, I don't know how many pairs of eyes were staring at her. I don't know how many rich and powerful children and young geniuses are amazed by her." The third prince was a little smug, but he didn't expose the truth. He said with a smug face, "So, second brother, just wait for the show." "What?" The second prince raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Don't tell me you still have hope that Zhenhong can make it into the top 10. Why not?" the third prince asked. The second prince turned around and looked at Zhenhong carefully. Then, he stretched out 4 fingers and said to the third prince, 4 counties. "Do you want to bet?" The two brothers had a tacit understanding. The third prince naturally understood what he meant. Whoever lost would have to give up 4 counties and withdraw all their forces and properties. Although it wasn't a shocking bet, it would still hurt the third prince. The third prince pursed his lips and nodded heavily. "Okay. This king will bet with you." "Ha! You're really confident." The second prince couldn't help but look at him in a new light. He sneered and said, "Unfortunately, confidence is not enough. You're destined to lose." "What do you mean?" The third prince was calm and composed as he asked with a smile. The second prince's smile was somewhat mocking. He said slowly, "In recent years, this king has secretly recruited more than 3,000 young talents and has been secretly training them. This king has selected more than 20 geniuses with the strongest talent and potential in this arena competition. Not only this king, but also Ol Wu. Although he is seriously injured and in seclusion, he can't attend this ceremony. But in order to train his trusted subordinates, he didn't hesitate to put more than 30 young geniuses into this competition. Let's put it this way, the top 10 spots are all taken by us. Your Zhenhong girl has no hope at all. Chapter 30-39. The third prince's face suddenly turned ugly. Although, he also had the intention to cultivate a team of forces. 9 young geniuses were stuffed into the slots for the arena competition this time. Including Zhenhong, there were a total of 10 geniuses, all of whom were his trusted aides. But now he realized that compared to the second prince and the fifth prince, he was simply too kind. There were only a total of 180 geniuses who were qualified to sign up. The second prince and the fifth prince's trusted aides were more than 60 people, occupying 1/3 of the quota. This arena competition was simply organized for the 2 of them. At that time, 9 out of the 10 geniuses who could receive the baptism of the blood flame sacred tree would be their people. The third prince also felt that Zhenhong definitely had no hope. The most important thing was that he would definitely lose the bet and give up the territory of 4 counties. This time he would lose miserably. The third prince sighed silently, his mood became heavy, and his expression was somewhat gloomy. Seeing his reaction, the second prince's mood was incomparably carefree, and even hummed a little tune. The third prince knew that this was deliberately angering him, but he could not vent his anger, so he could only suppress his anger. At this time, the first round of the tournament ended. Jia Anai and Gu Changfeng exchanged more than 1,000 moves, and fought for half an hour before the winner was finally decided. Gu Changfeng lost to Jia Anai's sword by a difference of 1 move, and left the stage full of regret. The whole place was filled with cheers, and Jia Anai opened his arms to embrace the sky, his face brimming with a victorious smile. On the viewing platform, Zhenhong had been watching the battle attentively, watching carefully. Seeing Ji Tianqing looking around with a worried look, she could not help but ask, "Young master, why are you not watching the battle?" "Oh." Ji Tianqing came back to his senses, waved his hand and said, "It's just chickens pecking at each other, nothing to watch." Zhenhong still had a lot of things to say, but she choked back, not knowing how to continue. Originally, she wanted to persuade Ji Tianqing, although he was predetermined to be in the top 30, and did not need to participate in today's tournament. But he needed to know more about his opponent, so that he could win more easily. But now it seemed that all these were nonsense. So, she kept silent and continued to watch the second round seriously. The sun continued to rise, and time passed quickly. Unknowingly, it was already noon. The grand competition had already progressed to the 30th round, and more than 30 geniuses had successfully advanced. During this period of time, over 70 young geniuses fought intensely, and they presented many brilliant scenes. 7-color divine light that blotted out the sky, dazzling and ever-changing divine light, and endless loud noises and explosions rang out in the arena for a long time. The millions of God clan warriors in the square were dazzled and excited. While everyone was enjoying the feast for their eyes, they also gained a lot of enlightenment from it. Cheers and worried screams could be heard one after another. Zhenhong watched every match carefully and paid special attention to the dozen or so winners. Taking advantage of the fact that the next match had yet to begin, she frowned and pondered, analyzing the characteristics and weaknesses of those young geniuses. At this time, Ji Tianqing patted her leg and asked, "What are you thinking about?" It couldn't be helped. When they sat together, there was a height difference of 2 meters. Even if Ji Tianqing wanted to pat her on the shoulder, he would have to jump up. Therefore, he could only find a place where he could reach. "Young master, there are a dozen or so young geniuses who are very strong. I'm analyzing their weaknesses and thinking of countermeasures." Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "Don't be so nervous. Why are you thinking so much? None of the people on the arena today are a match for you. Your real opponents are all in the top 30. Huh? Zhenhong was quite surprised and said uneasily, "Young master, do you really think I can make it into the top 30? Ji Tianqing shook his head. "Not the top 30, but the top 10. Zhenhong, degree, what? You're not confident? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows when he saw her dazed expression. Zhen Hong became even more uneasy. She lowered her head and murmured, "You have such high expectations of me. I'm really afraid I'll disappoint you." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "Don't think so much. When you get on the arena, don't think about your opponent's moves, attributes, and weaknesses. You just need to focus and use all your strength to execute the Dragon Tribe's ultimate techniques that you've just mastered. The battle will be over. You're worrying so much now because you don't understand how strong you are. When you enter a berserk state and transform into a female T-Rex, you'll be so strong that even you are afraid of yourself." Zhen Hong was stunned again. Oh, seeing her dazed expression, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but reach out and flick her forehead. Unfortunately, he couldn't reach her and could only withdraw his hand awkwardly. "Young master, what's wrong?" Zhen Hong looked at him in confusion. After thinking for a moment, she understood and took the initiative to bend down and lower her head, placing her forehead in front of him. Ji Tianqing was speechless. He said in a bad mood, "Close your eyes and don't observe the battle. Revise your ultimate techniques." "Yes, young master." Zhen Hong nodded. As expected, she closed her eyes and began to review the Dragon Tribe's ultimate techniques. The sun gradually set in the west. 2 hours later, it was finally Zhen Hong's turn to go on stage. The 71st battle was between her and Tang Yu of the Dark Blood County. When Zhen Hong, dressed in crimson armor, stepped onto the stage with a solemn expression, scattered cheers sounded in the square, mixed with ear-piercing whistles. Moreover, all of them were young men with dazed expressions and dazed eyes. It was obvious that the people didn't recognize Zhen Hong in her dragon girl form. Those young men cheered only because of her beauty. As for her opponent, he was an out-and-out young genius. He was dressed in a green robe and wielded a sword. His long hair fluttered in the wind. His face was handsome, and his temperament was elegant. Most importantly, his strength had reached the 4th level of the Divine Sovereign realm, ranking him among the middle-level Divine Sovereigns. This person stepped on the sky and calmly stepped onto the stage, causing countless people to cheer. There were also many God Tribe women who excitedly shouted his name, like a group of little fangirls. Without a doubt, Tang Yu was one of the best of the younger generation and was very famous. He wasn't just famous in the Dark Blood County. In recent decades, he had mingled in the royal city and made a name for himself. In the hearts of countless people, the result of the battle between these two would be decided in less than 100 breaths. Tang Yu would undoubtedly win. After the two of them stepped onto the stage, they simply bowed and greeted each other, then attacked. Tang Yu was naturally elegant and graceful, waving his sword and displaying his divine powers. He only used 80% of his strength, preparing to test the waters with a few moves before using his full strength to defeat Zhen Hong. In this way, not only did he take care of Zhen Hong's face, but he also maintained his own image. However, Zhen Hong obeyed Ji Tianqing's instructions. Without any distractions, she threw away all distracting thoughts and used the Dragon Tribe's ultimate techniques with all her might. Dragon Shadow Palm. Her body ignited with golden light that soared into the sky, erupting with violent divine power, and brazenly slashed out a sky full of dragon claw phantoms. Bang! 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 In just an instant, the sky full of golden dragon claw phantoms drowned Tang Yu, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. Chapter 30-40. Boom! Boom! Loud noises like muffled thunders exploded in the arena one after another. Tang Yu's sword Dao divine ability directly fell apart. He was also hit by the dragon claws and flew out in a sorry state. He drew an arc in the sky and fell tens of thousands of feet away. He struggled to get up, but his face was pale and he spat out 3 blood arrows in a row. In the end, he staggered and swayed a few times before he fell on the arena with a plop. It was not until then that the trembling arena gradually calmed down. The battle came to an abrupt end. Tang Yu was defeated by Zhen Hong in one move. It was a real insta-kill. When the golden light dissipated, everyone could see the situation in the arena. Everyone was dumbfounded. Not only were the millions of Protoss collectively petrified, but they also stared at Zhen Hong and Tang Yu, who was seriously injured and lying on the ground. Even the dignitaries and experts on the 4 viewing platforms were shocked. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. Even the second prince and the third prince, who were standing on the stage, were stunned. Before this, there were few battles between geniuses that could cause such a reaction. Now, Zhen Hong did it. Of course, Zhen Hong was also dumbfounded. She stood on the stage in a daze, looking at her right hand in a daze. Her eyes were filled with tears. At this moment, her emotions were very complicated and she was very excited. But she couldn't laugh. She just wanted to cry. It would be best if she threw herself into the arms of the young master and burst into tears. After a moment of silence, the audience burst into earth-shattering cheers and exclamations. Hundreds of thousands of people cheered in unison and discussed excitedly. The terrifying sound wave torrent caused the entire plaza to tremble. Oh my God! Am I hallucinating? What the hell? Tang Yu was insta-killed. Who is that beautiful and strong woman? How can she be so powerful? Oh my God! Tang Yu, the little overlord of the Dark Blood County, was insta-killed by a woman with one punch. Hee hee. That's why I said don't act cool in front of everyone. You'll only be cool for a second. Tang Yu is usually very dissolute. Now he has suffered a big setback. Let's see how he can attract bees and butterflies in the future. There was a lot of discussion in the square. The dignitaries and experts on the 4 viewing platforms were also whispering to each other, inquiring about Zhen Hong's identity. On the ceremony platform, the third prince came back to his senses and grinned proudly. Although his smile was a bit silly. After all, he was also frightened. He guessed that after Zhen Hong's bloodline awakened, his strength. But he didn't expect him to be so strong. Oh, this was a completely different person. Is this the same Zhen Hong? The second prince's face darkened. He frowned and the corner of his mouth twitched. Third prince, you're so cunning. His heart ached because Tang Yu was one of his confidants that he had secretly trained. The third prince said proudly, beaming with joy, this is called wisdom. Do you know how to play the pig to eat the tiger? You are a pig to begin with. Do you still need to pretend to be one? The second prince glared at him. At this time, Tang Yu left the arena awkwardly. Zhen Hong also held back her tears and flew back to Ji Tianqing. She didn't sit down, but bowed deeply to Ji Tianqing. 2 sparkling teardrops rolled down from the corners of her eyes and landed on Ji Tianqing's body. This scene caused the dignitaries on the viewing platforms to discuss and speculate in private. Ji Tianqing took her arm, pressed her to the seat beside him, and asked, so many people are watching. What are you doing? Why are you crying? Thank you, young master. Zhen Hong reached out to wipe her tears, but she couldn't stop them from flowing down again. You were right. The power of the Dragon Clan's unique skill is beyond my imagination. In the past few hundred years, I never dared to imagine that I could be so powerful. It was you who helped me awaken my bloodline and give me a new life. I'm no longer the Zhen Hong of the past. Seeing her so sad, Ji Tianqing subconsciously reached out his hand, wanting to pat her shoulder and comfort her. But it wasn't high enough. Forget it. I'll just take my hand back. Next, 5 more matches were carried out in the arena. At this point, the first round of the competition was over. 76 geniuses advanced, and the other half were eliminated. The third prince loudly announced the list of those who advanced and allowed everyone to rest for an hour before continuing the second round of the competition. During this period, The people who advanced didn't dare to be distracted. They seized the time to circulate their energy and take pills to recover their strength. Zhen Hong wasn't injured, and she didn't use much divine power. After all, she wasn't mentally prepared for the battle to end. Therefore, she still listened to Ji Tianqing's arrangement and continued to review the 18 unique skills of the Dragon Clan. She was thinking in her heart. Which unique skill should she use in the next round? Just as she was thinking over and over again and couldn't make up her mind, Ji Tianqing made the final decision. You're still using that Dragon Shadow Palm. If you can defeat your opponent in one move, there's no need to drag it out until the second move. Also, don't expose your trump cards so easily. Zhen Hong came to a sudden realization and hurriedly nodded to express her understanding. Soon, the second round of the competition began. The second prince drew lots again, and 38 pairs were selected from the 76 young geniuses. This time, Zhen Hong was placed in the 37th match. Ji Tianqing was a little depressed. He frowned and muttered, "What kind of bad luck is this? I'm actually placed in the second last match. What's wrong, young master?" Zhen Hong was puzzled. Ji Tianqing explained, "Today's competition isn't good. If you go on stage earlier, we can leave after the competition." Zhen Hong was taken aback for a moment before nodding in agreement. "That's true. If we wait until it's dark, we'll delay your rest." She thought for a moment and asked, "Young master, why don't you go back and rest first?" "I'll go back after the competition." "No need, I'll wait." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, "You continue to consolidate your foundation of the divine Tao. I'm going to take a nap." With that, he reclined on the chair and closed his eyes to take a nap. Zhen Hong didn't dare to disturb him. He could only silently adjust his breathing and work hard to consolidate his foundation. Ji Tianqing appeared to be taking a nap, but he was actually observing Prince Lien and the reaction in the palace. The fifth prince's men were crippled, and the experts and forces under his command had also collapsed. This was a huge blow to Prince Lien's plan. He already had a premonition that Prince Lien would soon make a move against him. In addition, the fifth prince was beaten to such a state. 2 days had passed, and the king must know the whole story. But what made him feel strange was that the king didn't react at all when his youngest son was beaten to such a state. Wasn't this too strange? Even if there was a reason, the fifth prince's injuries and poisoning were his own fault. But the king was the same as the top experts. He only recognized who had the bigger fist and didn't care about reason. The king pretended that nothing had happened, which made him more vigilant. Chapter 30-41. Time passed very quickly. At dusk, it was finally Zhen Hong's turn to take the stage to compete. Young geniuses who could enter the second round of the grand competition were basically all middle-level divine lords. Occasionally, there were a few low-level divine lords, but they were also peak third-stage realm and grasped special secret techniques. Zhen Hong's luck was not too good. Her opponent was stronger than Tang Yu. Not only did his strength reach peak 4th stage divine lord realm, but he also grasped several powerful divine abilities and ultimate skills. Furthermore, this ordinary-looking young man was a trusted aide groomed by the fifth prince. The two people fought on the stage. The young man did not show any mercy, going all out the moment he made his move. But the outcome was destined long ago. Zhen Hong used her full strength once again, executing that dragon shadow palm. Golden dragon claws that filled the sky slammed down, releasing a power that could obliterate heaven and earth. The divine art light shadow that the other party executed, the divine Tao laws released, all disintegrated under the dragon claws. Boom! 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 The young man's divine ability was destroyed, and he was sent flying back. However, his injuries were not as miserable as Tang Yu's. After landing, he spat out a mouthful of blood and could still continue fighting. Seeing this scene, Zhenhong had no choice but to use the second dragon race's ultimate skill. Dragon Elephant Divine Fist. Following her angry roar, both fists ruthlessly struck out endless golden light, condensing into a mountain-sized dragon elephant phantom. This divine ability secret technique was exactly the same as the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist executed by Ji Tianqing. The difference was that the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist executed by Zhenhong could not be mentioned in the same breath as Ji Tianqing. It looked the same on the surface, but the power was 10 times worse. But it was more than enough to defeat that young man. Boom! Crack! Amidst a shocking loud noise, the young man's divine ability was defeated. He was blasted out again, rolling and smashing at the edge of the stage. If not for the sky blue light shield blocking, he would have long been blasted flying to the plaza. This time, he lay on the ground with blood spurting out of his 7 orifices. He groaned in pain a few times and hurriedly admitted defeat. Fortunately, he admitted defeat in time. Zhenhong accumulated her full strength again, preparing the next ultimate skill. If he had been a moment later, he would have been beaten to a pulp by Zhenhong. Zhenhong only used 2 moves to easily win again. The square was once again in an uproar. Countless commoners cried out in shock and disbelief. The dignitaries and experts on the viewing platform also found it hard to believe. After these 2 battles, Zhenhong had become the most dazzling genius powerhouse present, attracting everyone's attention. Countless people were still talking about her even after the 38 Elders competition had ended. After that, the third prince announced the list of those who had been promoted. A total of 38 geniuses had advanced and were qualified to participate in the 3rd round of the competition tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, they would compete with the top 30 geniuses in the arena. Today's competition had come to an end, and the people on the viewing platform left one after another. The commoners in the square also quickly dispersed. Ji Tianqing and Zhenhong were just about to get up and leave when he noticed a sharp gaze staring at him from the eastern viewing platform. It was as if there was a thorn in his back, making him very uncomfortable. He turned his head and saw that in the middle of the eastern viewing platform, Prince Lien was staring at him coldly. On the left and right sides of Prince Lien, there were 4 young experts. There were 3 men and 1 woman, all of whom were god monarchs of the 5th or 6th stage. Their brows were filled with an unruly aura. The 4 young geniuses were also coldly sizing him and Zhenhong up, not hiding their hostility at all. Ji Tianqing glanced at the 4 people, turned around expressionlessly, and left with Zhenhong. On the way back to Longwind Courtyard, Ji Tianqing sat in a luxurious carriage with Zhenhong standing beside him. After a moment of silence, Zhenhong asked, "Young master, that black-robed youth seems to have a deep hatred for you." The 4 young experts beside him also had strong enmity towards us. I guess that the 4 of them are also going to participate in the arena competition. Moreover, they should be the same as you. They are all in the top 30. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly with a look of approval. Your observation is very careful, and your analysis is also very correct. That's right. The black-robed youth is Prince Lien, and he is coming for me. As for the 4 young geniuses, they are all elites under his command. In tomorrow's arena competition, they will definitely attack us. If you meet them at that time, you must deal with them carefully. Don't let your guard down. Zhenhong nodded to show that he understood and said worriedly, I have heard of Prince Lien's name several times. He seems to be from the imperial family of the great Yan Empire. Young master, how did you provoke such a strong enemy? The other party hates you so much. Do you want to ask His Majesty to mediate? The matter between the 5th prince and Prince Lien was top secret, so Zhenhong certainly did not know. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and said, there is nothing to mediate. You don't have to worry. I have my own countermeasures. Prince Lien is playing tricks in the arena competition, so there is nothing to worry about. Let's just rely on our own strength. What we really need to worry about is that after the divine blood ceremony, he will secretly play tricks. After a while, the carriage returned to the Changfeng courtyard. As soon as Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong got out of the carriage, the guard at the door hurriedly came to report the news. "Young master, Miss Ning has arrived and is waiting for you in the study." Ji Tianqing was startled for a moment. Then, he raised his eyebrows and his calm eyes softened a little. "Okay, I know." Seiji nodded and brought Masahiro through the door to the study. Zhen Hong certainly knew that the Miss Ning mentioned by the guard was Princess Ning's niece, the first Miss Ning of Tianxue County. She was keenly aware that when Ji Tianqing heard the news, his eyes and mood eased a lot. When they were halfway there, Ji Tianqing looked back at her and said, "You must be tired after 2 rounds today. You don't have to follow me anymore. Go back and rest. Tomorrow is the real fierce battle. You should consolidate your foundation tonight." Zhen Hong reflexively wanted to nod his head and say yes. But she hesitated for a moment and shook her head. "Thank you for your concern, young master. Zhen Hong is not tired. It's Zhen Hong's duty to serve you." Ji Tianqing didn't say much and just let her be. Soon, they arrived at the study. As soon as they stepped into the study, they saw an elegant beauty in a light green dress sitting at the desk and reading quietly. Under the warm gemstone light, her profile was quite beautiful and elegant. According to the aesthetics of the Bloodfire Divine Country, she was absolutely a beautiful woman. "Miss Ning, you are late." Ji Tianqing walked towards her and greeted her with a faint smile on his face. Ning Xiyuan woke up with a start. She quickly put down the book, stood up and bowed. "Greetings, young Master Tianqing. Sit down and talk." Ji Tianqing walked to the desk and sat down, facing Ning Xiyuan. Ning Xiyuan glanced at Zhen Hong and asked, "Young master, is this your personal maid?" Chapter 3042. Ji Tianqing didn't have much of a reaction. When Zhen Hong heard those words, her heart skipped a beat and she was a little embarrassed. But she didn't utter a word, hoping that Ji Tianqing would answer yes. But Ji Tianqing's answer disappointed her. "What personal maid? Miss Ning must be joking." Ji Tianqing shook his head and explained, "She's called Zhen Hong, the leader of the maids in Changfeng courtyard." "I see." Ning Xiyuan nodded slightly, finally understanding the situation. Although she had been to Royal City many times before. But every time she visited her aunt, Princess Ning, she stayed in the third prince's residence and had never been to Changfeng courtyard. So, she didn't know Zhen Hong. Ji Tianqing asked unintentionally, "I heard from the third prince that every time you come, you stay in the prince's residence. Why did you come to Changfeng courtyard? Why are you looking for me?" Ning Xiyuan shook her head and said, "I've already visited my aunt. Every time I stay in the prince's residence, I'm already bored. Since you're staying in Changfeng courtyard, of course I have to come here. It's more convenient." Ji Tianqing didn't think much and asked about her cultivation situation. Zhen Hong listened silently and a little scheme popped up in her heart. "Young master lives here, Miss Ning also lives here. More convenient. What does that mean? What's more convenient? Could it be that between young master and Miss Ning, there's really..." At this time, Ning Xiyuan said, "Thanks to young master's help, my pain has been relieved. After taking the pill you gave me, my bloodline and innate talent had a qualitative leap. Not long ago, I broke through to the monarch god realm and now my foundation is stable. I have a premonition that in less than a year, I will be able to advance to the second-degree realm." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "This is called good preparation. Ning's bloodline is a quasi-king bloodline, but because of the existence of Heavenly Slayer, it suppressed your innate talent and potential. Now that Heavenly Slayer has been lifted, your accumulated potential for many years will be released and your strength will definitely increase explosively." Ning Xiyuan continued, "It's a pity that I was still a step too late even though I rushed over. I just arrived in the capital today. After visiting Auntie, the arena tournament is almost over. Ji Tianqing chuckled and said, "It is indeed a pity. If you had come a few days earlier, you could have signed up and tested your strength." Ning Xiyuan hurriedly waved his hands and said modestly, "Don't laugh at me, young master. If I participate in the competition with this bit of strength, I will only embarrass myself in front of everyone. I won't be able to make it in time for this year's ceremony. I can only wait 50 years before I try again." The two of them chatted back and forth, talking about things that could be big or small. Zhen Hong stood quietly to the side and listened for a long time. Through their conversation, she gradually understood the relationship between Ji Tianqing and Ning Xiyuan. Only now did she know that Ji Tianqing had not only helped her awaken her bloodline, he had also helped the Ning clan resolve the bloodline defect. He had also given the Ning clan a new lease of life. This made Zhen Hong very shocked. She thought to herself, who exactly is young master? He actually has such unfathomable means. Previously, I thought that young master was interested in me and deliberately helped me awaken my bloodline. Now, it seems that I was thinking too much. Young master has always been straightforward and upright. He is good at helping others and does not ask for anything in return. To us, it is a great opportunity that can turn our lives upside down and be reborn. But to him, it's just a trivial matter that he can do casually. The more Zhen Hong thought about it, the more she felt that Ji Tianqing was unfathomable. He was so mysterious that she could not see through him. But the more it was so, the more she rejoiced. To be able to meet Ji Tianqing was truly a blessing of 3 lifetimes. At the same time, she secretly made up her mind to follow Ji Tianqing no matter what. Even if she followed him to the ends of the world and wandered the 4 seas, it would be a great blessing. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. After Ji Tianqing and Ning Xiyuan finished chatting, he said goodbye and good night and prepared to rest. Zhen Hong also tactfully retreated and returned to her residence to meditate and adjust her breath. The night was silent. Changfeng Courtyard was quiet and peaceful. Early the next morning, the sun had just risen. Zhen Hong finished meditating. After washing up, she went to serve Ji Tianqing to get up. Unexpectedly, as soon as she walked to Ji Tianqing's residence, she saw that Ji Tianqing had already finished washing up and was leisurely eating breakfast with Ning Xiyuan in the living room. Miss Ning is even earlier than me. Zhen Hong paused and thought to herself, young master basically does not eat, and Changfeng Courtyard has never prepared breakfast. Those breakfast dishes are so exquisite and delicious. Did Miss Ning make them herself? Why is Miss Ning more dutiful than me, a maid? Thinking of this, Zhen Hong's expression was a little uneasy, and there was a little uneasiness in her heart. But she herself did not understand the source of the uneasiness. At this time, Ji Tianqing saw her enter the living room, so he waved and said, "Zhen Hong, come and taste Miss Ning's cooking. These snacks are all made with the best ingredients, which can benefit the qi, nourish the spirit, and condense the soul." Ning Xiyuan also looked at her calmly and did not speak. A rich and powerful family like the Ning family had a deep-rooted concept of superiority and inferiority. Maids and servants were not qualified to sit at the same table with their masters, let alone eat at the same table. But since Ji Tianqing had spoken, Ning Xiyuan naturally did not stop him and just kept silent. Zhen Hong quickly bowed and greeted the two, then said, "Young master and Miss Ning, please enjoy." Zhen Hong does not dare to break the rules, so I will retreat outside. After saying that, she bowed and was about to leave. This was the attitude a maid should have. Ning Xiyuan withdrew her gaze, reached out and picked up a piece of pastry, and put it in Ji Tianqing's bowl. "Young master, please concentrate on eating. You have to participate in the arena competition later." Ji Tianqing did not answer. He reached out and grabbed Zhen Hong and pulled her to sit beside him. "Hurry up and finish eating. Don't waste time." Zhen Hong's wrist was held by him, but she could not use any strength and could not resist at all. Even if she sat down, she felt as if she was sitting on pins and needles, and her heart was uneasy. Ning Xiyuan frowned slightly and looked deeply at Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong. As intelligent as she was, of course, she saw some subtle problems. But she kept her composure and ate in silence. This breakfast passed in an awkward and subtle atmosphere. A quarter of an hour later, Ji Tianqing took Ning Xiyuan and Zhen Hong in a carriage and left Changfeng Courtyard for the square in the city. When the three of them went to the northern viewing platform, almost all the people on the 4 viewing platforms had arrived. The huge square was crowded with nearly 1 million Protoss people, and there was a hubbub of voices. Not long after, the second prince and the third prince arrived. The two of them went to the ceremonial platform and announced that the arena competition would continue. Next, the drawing of lots for the third round of the tournament began. There were a total of 68 young geniuses in this round of the tournament. The third prince threw out 68 jade slips, which flew back and forth in the sky and formed a golden ball of light. The second prince waved his hand and shot out beams of divine light, constantly drawing out pairs of jade slips. Then, he announced the list of matches one by one. Zhen Hong was scheduled to fight in the 7th match, while Ji Tianqing was scheduled to fight in the last match. Chapter 30-43. The young geniuses who could enter the third round of the tournament were all powerhouses. Most of them were the second prince and the fifth prince's trusted aides. Zhen Hong's opponent was one of the young powerhouses under the fifth prince's command. Ji Tianqing's opponent was one of the second prince's trusted aides, a seeded contestant whom the second prince had high hopes for. Originally, the second prince had planned to place more importance on this young genius after he entered the top 10 and was baptized by the blood flame sacred tree. But now, it seemed that his luck was too bad. When he announced the battle between Ji Tianqing and Lu Kongyan, his heart was bleeding and his face was as cold as ice. Needless to say, even he could not defeat Ji Tianqing. How could Lu Kongyan be a match for Ji Tianqing? He would definitely be ground to the ground. After reading the name list, the second prince put down the jade slip with a dark face. Glancing at the third prince beside him, the second prince frowned when he saw the smirk on the third prince's face and the gloating look on his face. Why are you so happy? Lu Kongyan is not the only trusted aide I've trained. The third prince smiled and said telepathically, Lu Kongyan has been eliminated in this round. What about the next round? What about the next round? He. With Tianqing's strength and means, he's just a noob in the tournament. It just depends on who's unlucky enough to become his stepping stones. The second prince's eyes twitched and he said hatefully, why did you let him participate in the tournament? Isn't this unnecessary? Just use your connections and let him be baptized by the sacred tree. It's not that difficult. The third prince retorted righteously, second brother, you're wrong. Am I the kind of person who plays favoritism? Moreover, young Master Tianqing is righteous, confident, and proud. Why would he use such a method to be baptized by the sacred tree? He. The second prince rolled his eyes and sneered at him. He did not say anything else. At the same time, on the northern viewing platform, Ji Tianqing, Ning Xiyuan, and Zhen Hong were discussing in low voices. The young geniuses participating in this round are all the top geniuses in the Divine Kingdom. If I'm not wrong, most of these people are the confidants of the princes, and they're secretly cultivating their forces. Don't worry, young master. Master didn't arrange much. If there really is a genius secretly nurtured by the master, I should be able to recognize him. Young Master Tianqing, there's no need to worry. You just have to fight with all your might. Your goal is to win the championship, so you'll have to eliminate a lot of geniuses. Ji Tianqing sat in the middle, Ning Xiyuan sat on the left, and Zhen Hong sat on the right. The two women were both beauties that could topple cities, yet they were hugging Ji Tianqing in a very intimate manner. This aroused the envy and jealousy of countless people, and they secretly criticized him countless times. Coincidentally, the second prince, Duanmu Xiong, was also there. How could he miss such a grand divine blood ceremony? He had been here the day before and watched the whole day. Moreover, he was a relative of the royal family, so he was also sitting on the northern viewing platform. His seat was not far from Ji Tianqing. They were only 3 rows apart, less than 100 feet away. Therefore, he could clearly see every move of Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, and Ning Xiyuan. Even when the 3 of them were whispering to each other, their intimate expressions and actions did not escape his eyes. Yesterday, Duanmu Xiong had been shown off for the whole day. He had watched Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong being all lovey-dovey. Today, it was even worse. Not only Zhen Hong, but even Ning Xiyuan had come. The 2 women sandwiched Ji Tianqing in the middle, showing off their affection for each other throughout the whole process. Duanmu Xiong was restless. His face was pale, and he glared at the 3 of them fiercely. His chest was burning with jealousy. However, the most infuriating thing was that Ji Tianqing and the other 2 were still as before, completely ignoring his existence. To Duanmu Xiong, this was the greatest humiliation. He had completely lost the mood to watch the battle. His eyes were fixed on Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, and Ning Xiyuan. The angrier he was, the more he wanted to stare at them. However, the more he stared, the more his jealousy burned. Not long after, Zhen Hong went up the stage to compete. This time, she used 3 moves to defeat her opponent. The audience cheered thunderously, and she became the focus of the audience again. When she returned to the viewing platform and sat down, Ji Tianqing actually whispered something in her ear. She did not know what they were talking about. Zhen Hong nodded repeatedly, as if he was shy, or as if he was thinking about something. When Duanmu Xiong saw this, he was so angry that his chest rose and fell rapidly. His eyes were almost red. Bastard! What a shameless bastard! In broad daylight, in front of millions of people, he has no sense of shame and is whispering sweet nothings to Zhen Hong. Ning Xiyuan, oh Ning Xiyuan, are you blind? The 2 of them are right beside you, being intimate in front of you. How can you stand it? Duanmu Xiong was filled with grief and indignation as he roared in his heart. He really could not understand how Ji Tianqing had managed to win the favor of Ning Xiyuan and Zhen Hong. The most bizarre thing was that the 2 women were with him at the same time, and nothing happened. Duanmu Xiong did not even dare to dream of this kind of happiness. However, Ji Tianqing had done it. His jealousy and hatred for Ji Tianqing had reached an uncontrollable level. At this moment, a young aristocrat beside him noticed that his emotions were in turmoil. He could not help but ask, "Second prince, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" The young aristocrat was dressed in a white robe and held a folding fan in his hand. He was dressed like a dashing prince. His name was Zelluo, and he was the son of the general of the south. He was one of the top nobles in Monarch City and was very close to Duanmu Xiong. Duanmu Xiong quickly suppressed his anger and forced himself to remain calm. He said, "It's nothing. I just couldn't help but feel my blood boiling when I saw how exciting their fight was." Zelluo secretly sent a telepathic message and said with a playful smile, "Is that so? Isn't it because you saw that nobody sitting on 2 peerless beauties and felt indignant?" Duanmu Xiong was stunned. He turned to look at him and asked, "Brother Zelluo, do you feel the same way?" "Of course." Zelluo waved his fan out of habit and sighed. "Sigh. Noble young masters like you and me, who are of noble status and outstanding talents, can't even win the favor of the beauties. Instead, it's those despicable scoundrels who use some dirty tricks to win the hearts of the beauties. What's wrong with this world? Are we too pure and not shameless enough?" Duanmu Xiong nodded in agreement. He said angrily, "Yes. It's all our fault for being too gentlemanly and being restricted by so many rules. On the other hand, those bastards who were born lowly and had dirty means would resort to any means to please the beautiful woman. The funniest thing is that he has to curry favor with the beauties to have the right to do so. Otherwise, he would be like those lowly commoners, crowding in the public square with millions of people and looking up at us like a toad. Zelluo could hear the hatred in his voice. He looked at Ji Tianqing and the other two with a playful gaze. Then, he raised his eyebrows at Duanmu Xiong and sent a telepathic message to instigate him. Since you hate him so much, why don't you kill him? Do you still want to watch him walk in front of you? Chapter 30-44. Duanmu Xiong was stunned for a moment before he shook his head with dim eyes. I can't defeat him. Not only could he not defeat him, but he was also completely defeated. Moreover, there were still remnants of the poison in his body that had yet to be removed. Even the tool to carry on his ancestral line had only grown out recently and had yet to fully recover. Whenever he thought of that incident, the shadow in his heart would grow infinitely. Zelluo waved his folding fan again and chuckled. The weak work hard, the weak work hard, and the strong work hard. Second Prince, there's no need for proud sons like you and me to do it personally. Duanmu Xiong frowned and said gloomily, I also want to hire a strong man to kill him, but I don't meet his requirements. Previously, he was willing to spend 30 billion to hire the Evil Blood Palace to assassinate Ji Tianqing. However, the Evil Blood Palace was unwilling and wanted to add the Furious Blood Sacred Tree. That was the most precious treasure of the prince's residence. He did not dare to trade it. Zelluo patted his shoulder and chuckled. Second Prince, a man should repay kindness and revenge as he pleases. Don't be timid, or you'll only be wronging yourself. Just like now, you can only stare and sulk as you watch that brat take away the woman you like. Money and treasures are just worldly possessions. As long as you can vent your anger and make yourself happy, just do it. You're the crown prince of the divine nation and the second grandson of the monarch. Don't you think it's too ridiculous? Zelluo was a hedonistic son. He usually drank and went to brothels with Duanmu Xiong. They were so close that they shared a pair of pants. Therefore, he casually blurted out these taboo words. Duanmu Xiong fell silent. He stared at his feet with his head lowered and struggled internally. Zelluo transmitted his voice again. These are my heartfelt words. This is what I do. That's why I can live a carefree life. In the past, there was a son of a princess who wanted to snatch the top courtesan from me. He even wanted to use underhanded means. I didn't say anything and sent someone to kill him that very night. Things got out of hand. My father's salary was deducted for 100 years and he was scolded by the monarch. I was beaten half to death by my father and locked up for 10 years. But so what? Now that I've vented my anger and felt good, I won't regret it anymore. Then, he patted Duanmu Xiong's shoulder and said earnestly, Second Prince, think about it carefully. Yes. Duanmu Xiong replied without even raising his head. After a long time, when he raised his head, his gaze had become firm, and there was no longer any struggle or hesitation in his heart. After an entire 4 hours, this round of the competition finally came to an end. The final battle began. A tall and sturdy young man in black armor with a broad back flew into the arena. This was a member of the Blood Flame Divine race. He was over 3 meters tall and had a head full of purple hair. His entire body exuded a valiant aura. He stood proudly in the ring with his arms crossed in front of his chest. His face was expressionless. The Protoss in the square immediately cheered and shouted. Many of them began to whisper to each other and discuss the situation. It's Xue Bufan. He's finally here. The 5th hero of the 10 heroes of the Monarch City, the best of the younger generation. The last time he showed himself was 2 years ago. Now that he's here again, he seems to be even stronger than before. I wonder who his opponent is. He's so unlucky and pitiful. I remember his name seems to be Tianqing. Why haven't I heard of this name before? That's right. This person has never fought on the arena before. He must be a backdoor entrant who's been internally selected to be in the top 30. Tisk, TSK, TSK. Tianqing will be brutally beaten by Xue Bufan later. He'll be defeated in 3 to 5 moves. Won't that be a slap to the faces of those nobles? Just as everyone was discussing, Ji Tianqing stood up from the spectator stand. Zhen Hong looked at him and said with a smile, "Be careful, young master." Ning Xiyuan also reminded, "Young master Tianqing, don't be too anxious to end the battle. It's most important to preserve your strength." Ji Tianqing nodded and stepped into the sky, landing on the arena. His appearance caused the people in the square to discuss even more enthusiastically. That kid is Tianqing, Xue Bufan's opponent. He's actually from another race. He looks ordinary. He's definitely not Xue Bufan's opponent. That kid came out from the northern viewing platform. Could it be that his backer is a relative of the royal family? Who cares who his backer is? The arena competition relies on strength. He'll be beaten down later and leave the arena in humiliation. The commoners despised people like Ji Tianqing, who relied on his connections to participate in the arena competition. The commoners despised him the most. In fact, for some reason, countless people had a common enemy and treated him as an enemy. Hundreds of thousands of people were shouting, hoping that Xue Bufan would ruthlessly beat Ji Tianqing and make him lose face. Only in this way could the people vent their anger. This was also another way for the people to fight back against those high and mighty nobles. On the arena, Ji Tianqing and Xue Bufan stood 1,000 feet apart. Xue Bufan looked at him coldly and said proudly, "I'm Xue Bufan, one of the 10 heroes of the royal city. My master is the leader of the Qianji sect." Ji Tianqing had a smile at the corner of his mouth. After listening to him, he said, "And then?" Xue Bufan frowned and said with a sneer, "You're called Tianqing, right? I've never heard of your name, and I don't know where you came from. Although you relied on some connections to enter the predetermined list and directly participate in this round of the competition. But I want to remind you that in the arena competition, swords and sabers have no eyes. Don't put on airs. If you don't want to be seriously injured and lose face, admit defeat now." Ji Tianqing's smile became even wider and asked, "Are you done?" Xue Bufan's sneer became even more intense as he said contemptuously, "What? You're not willing to accept it? You talk too much nonsense." Ji Tianqing shook his head and finally lost his patience. As his voice fell, he raised his right hand like lightning and slashed at Xue Bufan. Swoosh! It was a very ordinary palm and did not use any magical skills. However, that 100 feet palm shadow that cut through the sky contained more than 30 kinds of power of laws. Its speed was as fast as an aurora, its power could destroy heaven and earth, and its momentum was like the sky collapsing and the earth sinking. In that instant, the space of the entire arena froze. Xue Bufan was suppressed by the invisible divine power, and his body stiffened on the spot. His expression was stunned, and his eyes were wide open, revealing a look of deep horror. However, his hand held the hilt of the sword, but it was too late to draw the sword. Boom! A deafening loud sound burst out. The 100 feet large golden palm shadow slammed into Xue Bufan, exploding with dazzling light that filled the sky. Among them, there was also a purple flower of blood mixed in. Xue Bufan flew 20,000 feet backward, slamming into the sky-blue shield, and fell to the ground with a bang. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. His eyes closed a few times, and then slowly closed. He fainted on the spot. The battle was over. The boisterous square instantly fell silent. Everyone had a dull face, staring at Ji Tianqing in horror, as if they had seen a ghost. The two princes on the ceremony stage had long expected this result. The third prince was full of smiles and in high spirits. The second prince looked depressed and couldn't help but sigh. Shui Bufan, this bastard, why are you talking so much nonsense? Shut up now, right? Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 30-45. This round of the competition was over. Another 34 young geniuses were eliminated on the spot. The second prince had suffered heavy losses, and his expression did not look too good. Similarly, many of the trusted geniuses that the fifth prince had secretly nurtured were also eliminated. After an hour of rest, the fourth round of the competition began. It was close to noon, and the sun was shining brightly in the sky. However, the nearly 1 million people in the square were patiently watching and discussing the battles. No one left early. Everyone knew that the young geniuses who could advance to this stage were the best of the younger generation. The following battles would be more and more exciting. Not to mention the scorching sun in the sky, even if the sky was raining knives, they would still watch the entire competition. On the ceremony stage, the third prince took out 34 jade slips, and the second prince drew lots to announce the battle list. The names of the 34 young geniuses were read out one by one. Of course, the names of Ji Tianqing and Zhen Hong were included. Coincidentally, Ji Tianqing was the first to fight. His opponent was Bai Hao, who was also one of the 10 heroes of the royal city. Not only did this person come from a prominent family, but he was also talented. Moreover, he was the backbone of the second prince's faction, and also a trusted subordinate that the second prince had specially nurtured. When the second prince announced the battle list, the names of these two people were like a blow to his head, and his face immediately collapsed. At that moment, he wished he could chop off his hands, and roared angrily in his heart, "Damn! Can I still keep my hands? What kind of bad luck is this?" First, Shui Bufan was crushed, and now Bai Hao is also going to be eliminated. These two people are elites who will definitely enter the top 10. Why am I so unlucky? Tianqing, you really are this king's jinx. The second prince was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood, but the third prince smiled even more brightly. He pretended to comfort the second prince, my condolences. It can't be helped, the trusted subordinates that you and the fifth prince have nurtured are all top geniuses. Now, 70% of the 34 geniuses are your people. Therefore, the chances of them bumping into Tianqing are too high. But I don't have such worries. After all, I only arranged 9 people, and 4 have already been eliminated. With only 5 people left, it's still very difficult to bump into Tianqing. The second prince pretended not to hear him and continued to draw lots to announce the list of matches. When he read the 15th match, his furrowed brows relaxed a little. The two sides of this battle were Zhenhong and Yuewu City. He was also a famous peak genius in Yuewu City. Furthermore, he was a famous figure of the younger generation under the fifth prince. His talent, strength, and means were not far from Bai Hao's. The second prince felt slightly comforted as he thought to himself, fortunately, it was old fifth's men. This prince has suffered heavy losses, so old fifth won't have it easy either. Zhen Hong was also amazing. In the past, she was so ordinary that no one would pay attention to her. However, after hanging out with Tianqing for a few days, she had actually undergone an earth-shattering change, becoming a top-notch genius in a single leap. The limelight of this grand ceremony has been completely stolen by the two of them. Soon, the list of names was announced, and the battle began. A tall and sturdy young man in luxurious clothes flew out from the northern viewing platform. His figure landed gracefully on the arena. He was none other than Bai Hao. He held a black scabbard saber in his left hand, and his right hand hung by his side. He stared at the ground expressionlessly. If his opponent was someone else, he would definitely be in high spirits and full of fighting spirit. Unfortunately, he knew that his opponent was Tianqing, and his heart sank. When Ji Tianqing was fighting Xue Bufan, he had severely injured Xue Bufan and knocked him out with one move. Bai Hao had seen the entire process clearly from the viewing platform. He asked himself honestly. If he were Xue Bufan, he would not be able to change the outcome either. He would still end up the same way. He had even heard of Tianqing's name before the divine blood ceremony. After all, he was the second prince's trusted aide. In the past, Ji Tianqing had gone against the second prince and killed Princess Tianfeng and many monarch god experts. Bai Hao knew about this. Therefore, he was feeling very complicated at this moment. In the end, he could only sigh with emotion. Damn it, why am I so unlucky to encounter a plague like him? When he muttered this sentence, a white figure flashed in front of him. Ji Tianqing also flew across the sky and landed on the arena, standing 1,000 feet away from him. Bai Hao looked up with a gloomy face, and his eyes were vigilant and alert. Ji Tianqing looked at him with a faint smile and said, "Looking at you, you must have guessed the result. Why don't you admit defeat now and save me the trouble?" Bai Hao's mouth twitched, and his eyes became even more malicious. He shouted in a deep voice, "Win without a fight? Don't even think about it. I, Bai Hao, am one of the 10 heroes of King City. I am famous in the city and idolized by countless young protoss. How can I admit defeat without a fight in front of so many people? Don't I care about my face and reputation?" After hearing this, Ji Tianqing nodded seriously and said, "Well, your analysis is quite reasonable. In this case, I can only beat you until you admit defeat. At that time, you will be seriously injured, and like Xue Bufan, you will need at least 8 to 10 years to recover." Bai Hao frowned. After hesitating for a moment, he growled with a firm expression, "Even so, I will do my best to withstand at least 2 moves. I can withstand one more move than Xue Bufan, which proves that I am stronger than him." Ji Tianqing smiled and said, "You are ambitious. Then take this." After that, he slowly raised his right hand and clenched his fist to gather his momentum. Suddenly, a strong wind blew in the arena, and an invisible divine power surged wantonly. When a mountain-sized golden fist shadow appeared, the entire space in the arena froze. The great divine power suppressed Bai Hao, making his body bent and difficult to breathe. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. But he gritted his teeth and held on. His right hand held the hilt of his sword, and his eyes stared at Ji Tianqing, showing an incomparably tenacious will. He watched as Ji Tianqing raised his right fist and was about to punch him. At the critical moment, Bai Hao's eyes flashed with hesitation. Finally, he gritted his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Stop. I admit defeat." Ji Tianqing's fist was halfway out, but he had to stop. He looked at Bai Hao with a puzzled expression. "Didn't you have a backbone just now? Why did you change your mind in the blink of an eye?" Bai Hao replied expressionlessly, "Knowing that you are no match for him, you still insist on holding on. That's not courage, that's stupidity." Ji Tianqing frowned and asked again, "Didn't you say that you want to withstand 2 moves to prove that you are stronger than Xue Bufan?" Bai Hao replied with a dark face, "In the same situation where you made a move, he was seriously injured and unconscious, but I was unharmed. It turns out that I am still stronger." Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He asked through voice transmission, "Your master is the second prince, right?" Bai Hao was stunned for a moment and asked in confusion, "How do you know?" All these years, he had never exposed his faction. He had always been secretly helping the second prince. Logically speaking, Ji Tianqing shouldn't have known. Ji Tianqing revealed a meaningful smile. "If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Your shamelessness is really the same." Chapter 3046. If it were anyone else who humiliated the second prince like this, Bai Hao would have beaten them up. However, the other party was Ji Tianqing. He could only suppress his anger and pretend that he did not hear anything. There was no other way. He could not beat him. Goodbye. He cupped his hands expressionlessly and flew away without hesitation. Ji Tianqing felt that it was meaningless. He curled his lips and flew back to the viewing platform. The nearly 1 million God Clan citizens in the square were all confused and had dumbfounded expressions. Many people whispered to each other, asking and discussing. What's going on? That's it. What a scam. That Bai Hao admitted defeat just as Tianqing was about to make a move. Did he pee his pants because of Tianqing's aura? Or did they already fight with their divine souls? Xue Bufan was defeated in one move. Bai Hao is not much stronger. It's natural for him to admit defeat. But isn't he too spineless? Xue Bufan took one move. He should be more manly when he lost. Yeah. Bai Hao surrendered without a fight. He was overwhelmed by Tianqing's aura. How cowardly does that sound? The people found it difficult to understand Bai Hao's actions. They were even more curious about Ji Tianqing. However, the second prince on the ceremony platform nodded secretly. A look of relief flashed in his eyes. Finally, there's a smart one. He's not as dumb as Xue Bufan. If he were to be sent up and knocked out by Tianqing, I would have one less lackey in the next few years. Soon, the second battle began. The two young geniuses went up to the arena. They fought until the sky darkened and divine light filled the sky. After a quarter of an hour, the winner was decided. They left the arena one after another. The third battle began. Ji Tianqing was not interested in watching the battle. He was whispering to Ning Xiyuan to help her solve her doubts. Suddenly, he caught a glimpse of the two figures in the arena. One of them was a thin young man with a head of white hair. This immediately piqued his interest. He observed the battle expressionlessly. Zhen Hong, who was beside him, also stared at the arena with a serious expression, carefully watching the battle. Ning Xiyuan was somewhat puzzled and asked via voice transmission, "Young Master Tianqing, didn't you say you weren't interested in watching the battle? Could it be that there's something special about the two geniuses on the stage that is worthy of your attention?" Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. He stared at the white-haired youth and said, "That guy is here to ambush us. We'll meet him soon." "Snipe you?" Ning Xiyuan stared blankly for a moment before revealing an expression of disbelief. "What kind of genius is qualified to snipe you? According to my knowledge, there are only 2 or 3 people in the entire Blood Flame Divine Kingdom." Ji Tianqing smiled and said calmly, "Not only him, there are 3 other young geniuses who are targeting me. Of course, it's their mission to snipe me. Whether or not they succeed is another matter entirely." Ning Xiyuan said without hesitation, "It will definitely fail. Those people are too whimsical." Although the white-haired youth's strength was very strong, his combat experience was very abundant, and he even grasped many powerful divine abilities and ultimate skills. Furthermore, his strength also reached the 6th-level Divine Lord realm. He only used 80% of his strength and easily won after exchanging 200 moves with his opponent. But in the eyes of Ning Xiyuan and Zhen Hong, Ji Tianqing was a war god who had never been defeated before. Just based on those young geniuses participating in the battle today, none was his match. Because he was already a pinnacle Divine Lord powerhouse. Competing in martial arts with these young geniuses was simply bullying people. 2 hours later, it was Zhen Hong's turn to go on stage. Her opponent was called Yu Wucheng, a pinnacle genius of Cloudy Sun County, a wealthy aristocrat with an illustrious family background. This person's strength reached the 5th-level Divine Lord realm and cultivated over 20 kinds of divine abilities and ultimate skills. He was more adept at lightning-fast ambushes. The two people exchanged blows on the stage. Yu Wucheng transformed into 7 phantoms, and his true body hid in a corner of the stage. He used incomparably dazzling assassination techniques to drown out Zhen Hong's figure. Zhenhong couldn't find his true body for the time being, so she followed Ji Tianqing's instructions and used the dragon race's ultimate skills with all her might. As the saying went, a strong person could defeat 10 skilled people. She punched out with the dragon elephant divine fist and broke the divine art shadows that filled the sky, forcing out her opponent's true body. Yu Wucheng was very indignant and wanted to hide himself again to use an even more dazzling divine art. Zhenhong was like a storm, continuously using 4 dragon race's ultimate skills. Dragon Shadow Palm, Heavenly Dragon Strike, and Soaring Dragon Slash were all used. The entire stage was filled with Golden Dragon Divine Light, and dragon roars echoed. Yu Wucheng was beaten until he covered his head and fled like a rat. He barely lasted 4 moves before being knocked to the ground. When Zhenhong used the 5th move, he was severely injured and vomited blood, falling onto the stage. Yu Wucheng was defeated just like that. No matter how strange his divine art was or how fast his movement technique was, he couldn't withstand Zhenhong's violent attacks. After all, Zhenhong's dragon race's ultimate skills were too domineering and specialized in dealing with fancy moves. This round of battles finally ended. The 17 young geniuses advanced to the next round. Among them were Ji Tianqing, Zhenhong, and the 4 intermediate god lords under Prince Lien. It was already afternoon, and the scorching sun was even hotter. The nearly 1 million god race members in the plaza were dazzled and delighted. No one was willing to leave. Soon, the 2nd prince and the 3rd prince finished drawing lots. Out of the 17 young geniuses, one was lucky enough to advance to the next round. The other 16 people were divided into 8 pairs to fight on the stage. This round of battles was very crucial. It was the moment that determined the fate of the contestants and tugged at their heartstrings. The victors would enter the top 9 and have the right to enter the Blood Flame Mystic Realm to receive the baptism of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree. The 8 losers would have to fight for the 10th place. The chances were slim. In the first battle, the 2nd prince's confidant defeated a noble genius from the Tianxue County. The 2nd prince's brows relaxed and his expression relaxed. He finally felt somewhat comforted. After all, in this round, Ji Tianqing's opponent wasn't one of his men. Instead, it was a genius from the 5th prince's faction, a white-haired youth named Ji Ningwang. The 2nd and 3rd battles continued one after another. The contestants were the elites of the elites. All of them had extraordinary strength and were proficient in all kinds of divine arts. Every battle was brilliant. All kinds of gorgeous, dazzling, bizarre and strange divine arts were displayed on the stage one by one. The millions of spectators felt their blood boil and their spirits rise. They cheered excitedly from time to time. In the 5th battle, Zhenhong stepped onto the stage again. Her opponent was a foreign race genius from the southern border. He was a skinny youth with the bloodline of the flame wolf. This person's aura was sinister and his willpower was tenacious and resolute. He had the characteristics of the wolf race's bloodline. Most importantly, his strength had reached the peak of the 5th degree realm. He was only 1 step away from the 6th degree realm. When Zhenhong fought with him, the process was exceptionally difficult. From the beginning, she was suppressed by the flame wolf youth. The other party relied on his super fast speed and rich battle experience to beat Zhenhong back. After exchanging 10 moves, Zhenhong finally erupted with great potential and used the powerful heavenly dragon star-breaking slash. Only then did she defeat the flame wolf youth's various divine arts and injure him, causing him to fall onto the stage covered in blood. However, the flame wolf youth wasn't defeated. He actually boiled his bloodline and took the risk to stimulate his potential, breaking through to the 6th level divine monarch realm. Chapter 3047. This battle was a battle that would determine their fate. If they won, they would enter the top 9 and receive the baptism of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree. The Flame Wolf youth was from a foreign race and could not become a noble in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Naturally, he could not obtain too many cultivation resources and it was difficult for him to stand out. Therefore, he placed all his hopes on this grand ceremony. It was also because of this that he took the risk of burning his bloodline and risking his life. Fortunately, he successfully broke through to the 6th stage. Such tenacious willpower and terrifying wolf-like nature made countless people cry out in alarm. When he successfully broke through, everyone was boiling and erupted into earth-shattering cheers and shouts. Even the nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms looked at the flame wolf youth in a new light and admired him. Zhen Hong was under great pressure. Even her confidence was shaken. The flame wolf youth became even more ferocious and charged over wantonly, forcing her to retreat. Feeling helpless, she subconsciously turned her head and glanced at Ji Tianqing on the viewing platform. She wanted to know what Ji Tianqing's reaction and expression would be. If Ji Tianqing signaled her to admit defeat, she would rather give up the baptism of the sacred tree and immediately admit defeat. If Ji Tianqing supported her to continue fighting, she would never surrender even if she was seriously injured and unconscious. When she looked at Ji Tianqing, she saw a smiling face and a serious and focused gaze. Young master has never been interested in watching the battle, but he watched the entire process of my battle very seriously. Even if I lose, I can't let him down. This thought flashed through Zhen Hong's mind and she immediately became spirited and full of fighting spirit. At this moment, she saw Ji Tianqing's lips move silently. It was lip reading. She immediately understood. Ji Tianqing said 4 words. Reverse blood berserk. Zhen Hong's body trembled and her heart was filled with shock and disbelief. Young master actually wants me to use that trump card. Reverse blood berserk was one of the last trump cards of the 18 Dragon Clan's ultimate techniques. After using it, one's bloodline would flow backward and enter a berserk state. Not only would their appearance change, but their combat prowess would also increase by 5 times. Only the divine dragons and the Dragon Blood God clan could use such a powerful skill. After all, if an ordinary god race bloodline were to flow in reverse, they would definitely go mad and self-destruct or burn their bodies on the spot. Only the Dragon Clan, whose physical bodies were incomparably strong, could unleash such a self-destructive divine ability. Didn't young master teach me not to reveal too many trump cards? After all, this was the most exciting and hot-blooded battle in this god blood ceremony. No matter the result, Zhen Hong and the Flame Wolf youth were famous in the capital, and millions of God clan members would remember them. After a long time, the colorful divine light gradually dissipated. The arena regained its clarity, and the winner was decided. Zhen Hong stood in the sky, unharmed, and golden light flickered all over her body, like a goddess of war. No, to be exact, it should be the golden dragon goddess of war. Her expression was calm, and her eyes were emotionless. She looked at the ground without focus. Is this the ultimate power of the dragon god bloodline after the berserk state? Is this the berserk state that even I would be afraid of? She muttered to herself. Although it was a question, her tone was firm, and there was no doubt in it. She closed her eyes and muttered to herself, so it is. Master never lied to me. This is the feeling of ultimate power, so good. At this moment, Zhen Hong finally realized her own strength, and experienced the feeling of being a powerhouse. Her mentality also quietly changed and matured. From the obedient and humble maid captain in the past, she had finally become a descendant of the Dragon God clan. She had self-confidence, a desire for great power, and a vision for the future. She knew. From this moment on, she was no longer ordinary. The Flame Wolf youth's outcome was a little tragic. There were more than 20 wounds all over his body, and they were all deep to the bone. He lay on the arena covered in blood, twitching involuntarily, and groaning in pain. He had already lost. The pain of the physical body was far less than the disappointment and pain in his heart. Why? Why did I meet her? He murmured with lifeless eyes, and his heart was filled with unwillingness. Originally, he could break through on the spot in the arena and reach the 6th level of the Divine Lord realm. This was already a miracle that shocked the capital. He would definitely defeat his opponent, successfully enter the top 9, and get the chance to be baptized by the sacred tree. Everything was so beautiful. From then on, his fate went against the flow, and he became a genius powerhouse that everyone looked up to. But unfortunately, that was still a dream. Now, the dream was shattered. Chapter 30-48. Zhenhong and the Flaming Wolf Youth were not enemies. It was just fate that made them opponents. Even if the winner was decided, there was no enmity between them. The Flaming Wolf Youth looked up at her and said in a hoarse voice, "You won." Zhenhong removed her berserk state and returned to normal. She landed not far in front of him. She looked at the Flaming Wolf Youth calmly and said, "You are also very strong. It is also an opportunity for you to break through on the spot in the arena. Although you lost to me, you still have a chance to fight for the 10th place." The Flaming Wolf Youth was stunned and smiled bitterly. "The 8 losers will fight for the only spot." Zhenhong said expressionlessly, "My benefactor taught me that to become a true expert, I have to go through many 1 in a million tests in my life. If you don't even dare to fight for the 1 in a million chance, you don't deserve to be an expert." The Flaming Wolf Youth was stunned again and immediately showed an ashamed expression. He nodded and said, "You are right. Thank you for your guidance. Also, help me thank your benefactor." After that, he struggled to stand up with his injuries. He bowed to Zhenhong and turned to leave the arena. Although he was defeated and left the arena, his back was straight. His confidence and determination reappeared. Although the battle between Zhenhong and the Flaming Wolf Youth could be said to be the most exciting and hot-blooded battle since the beginning of the ceremony. Nearly 1 million God Clan people discussed excitedly for a long time. But soon, as one exciting battle after another played out, everyone's attention was diverted. The 6th battle. A white-haired youth named Ji Ningguang appeared. He was one of the 4 geniuses under Prince Lian that Ji Tianqing had paid attention to. This person was thin and wore black leather armor. He had short white hair and looked very capable. His face was cold and his aura was malicious. His eyes were as frightening as a poisonous snake's. After entering the arena, he stared coldly at the northern viewing platform and stared straight at Ji Tianqing. When Ji Tianqing flew into the arena, his lips curled into a sinister sneer. "Ha! My luck is quite good, much better than those 3 guys. The mission of sniping you will be completed by me in the end." Yi Ningguang said coldly and was quite proud. "Kid, do you know? It is your greatest honor to be seen as an opponent by the Emperor. As long as I defeat you in the arena, I will be rewarded by His Majesty with resources and treasures worth 1 billion. I really have to thank you." As he spoke, Yi Ningguang stretched out his hands. A black light flashed in his palms, and 2 black scimitars appeared. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Your luck is indeed not bad. Among the 4 great lackeys, you are the first to be defeated by this monarch. Of course, a cannon fodder like you is not worthy to be this monarch's opponent. Being defeated by this monarch is also the most glorious experience of your life." His tone was relaxed and casual, without the slightest bit of bravado. He was just stating a fact. Yi Ningguang, on the other hand, was greatly humiliated. He furrowed his brows and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Brat, you're courting death." Ji Tianqing's lips curved in a cold smile, saying indifferently, "The matter of West Wind Town, even the prince did not tell you?" During the battle at West Wind Town, he had severely injured the 5th prince and killed dozens of divine monarchs. Including several divine monarchs. If Yi Ningguang knew about this matter, he would not be so confident at this moment. Sure enough, Yi Ningguang furrowed his brows and asked in confusion, what West Wind Town? What did you do? Ji Tianqing laughed involuntarily, looking at him with pity. Little guy, you must have offended the prince. Yi Ning Wang immediately denied. How is that possible? I am loyal to the monarch. Then why did he send you to your death? Ji Tianqing sneered. Yi Ning Wang could no longer suppress his anger and roared, you talk too much nonsense, go die. As he roared, Yi Ning Wang waved his black scimitars, turning into a cold black light that attacked Ji Tianqing. His speed was extremely fast, like lightning. The divine ability he used was also very strange. It turned the entire arena into night, dark and cold, like a place of death. In addition, there were hundreds of death blades hidden in the darkness, ready to attack Ji Tianqing at any time. He was fully prepared and used his full strength right from the start. This divine ability was strange and mysterious, so powerful that it made people's hearts palpitate. Countless God clan members in the square cried out in alarm, their faces filled with worry. The nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms also looked at Yi Ning Wang in a new light. They stared at Ji Tianqing, waiting to see how he would deal with it. But everyone was disappointed. Ji Tianqing stood in place, not moving an inch. His expression was still indifferent as he slowly raised his right hand. He clenched his fist again, releasing golden light that condensed into a mountain-sized dragon-elephant phantom. Then, he threw it out in a destructive manner. It was the same move as before, but more powerful and contained more nomological power. Although it was gorgeous, it was boring to watch it a second time. Boom! Crack! The next moment, the dragon-elephant divine fist hit the black light, creating an earth-shattering sound. Instantly, the entire arena was filled with invisible divine power and shook violently. The sky-blue shield also shook violently, creating turbulent waves. Under countless shocked gazes, the black death aura that filled the arena instantly collapsed and dissipated. The black light that resembled a lightning bolt of death also exploded into fragments that filled the sky. Pfft! Yi Ning Wang's figure appeared, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He drew an arc in the air and smashed into the edge of the arena with a dull thud. He was severely injured with just one punch. He was unwilling to give up and wanted to get up and fight again. But he realized that his arms were broken, his legs were shattered, and his internal organs were shattered. Even the meridians and bones in his body were in a mess, broken and twisted inch by inch. After suffering such heavy injuries, his body was almost destroyed. Want to fight again? Impossible. Even if he went into seclusion to heal, it would take him at least 20 years to fully recover. No. Yi Ning Wang couldn't accept such a blow. His eyes were red as he roared with grief and anger. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing covered 10 miles with a single step and appeared in front of him. He raised his right hand again and clenched it into a fist that emitted golden light. Yi Ning Wang was terrified. His eyes were filled with fear and dread. His opponent's intention was clear. If he didn't admit defeat, he would have to take another punch. In his current state, he would be finished if he took another punch. Not only would his divine body be smashed, but his divine spark would also be severely damaged. By then, it wouldn't be something that could be recovered in a few decades. Before Ji Tianqing raised his fist, Yi Ning Wang couldn't wait and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Stop! I admit defeat." He was afraid that everyone couldn't hear him. Ji Tianqing pretended not to hear him and crippled him with one punch. That would be a huge loss. Therefore, he shouted so loudly that it shook the sky. Ji Tianqing frowned and retracted his fist. He said with disdain, "Just admit defeat. Why are you shouting so loudly? It's indeed glorious to be defeated by me, right?" Translator, Henyi Translations Editor, Henyi Translations. Chapter 3049. Yi Ning Wang was filled with grief and indignation as he left the arena with endless humiliation. He flew back to the eastern viewing platform and landed beside Prince Lien. He knelt in front of Prince Lien in shame and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. Your subordinate is useless and has disappointed your majesty. Please punish me, your majesty. Prince Lien, who was dressed in a black robe with golden threads, waved his hand expressionlessly. Leave and focus on healing your injuries. Seeing that Prince Lien was not angry and had no intention of punishing him, Yi Ningguang heaved a sigh of relief. After acknowledging the order, he hurriedly retreated to the side to heal his injuries. However, after he calmed down and recalled Prince Lien's reaction, he muttered in his heart. I lost to that kid in front of everyone and lost face, but your majesty is not angry at all. Your reaction is very calm. Could it be as that kid said, your majesty already knew the result and was certain that I was not his match? So, it is reasonable for me to lose and it is impossible for me to win. The more Yi Ningguang thought about it, the more confused he became. Doubts flashed through his mind. Since your majesty knows that the kid is very strong and that the four of us are not his match, why do you still want us to snipe him? However, Yi Ningguang could only suppress his doubts and did not dare to ask. At the same time, the other three young geniuses had the same question in their hearts. These three middle god lords were 2 men and 1 woman. Their appearances and attire were very strange. They had already fought on the arena and easily defeated their opponents to enter the top 9. Before Yi Ningguang went on the arena, they were full of confidence that Yi Ningguang would be able to defeat Ji Tianqing. However, after witnessing the battle with their own eyes, they realized that Ji Tianqing was much stronger than Yi Ningguang. Since that was the case, asking them to snipe Ji Tianqing was just asking for trouble. Zi Manluo, who was wearing purple leather armor and had a tall and graceful figure, hesitated for a moment before bowing to Prince Lien. Your Majesty, there is something that I do not understand. Hearing her words, Yi Ningguang and the other 2 guessed what she wanted to ask. Instantly, everyone's gaze turned to Prince Lien to see how he would answer. Prince Lien glanced at Zi Manluo and said leisurely, I naturally have my own reasons for making such arrangements. You all just need to carry out your mission. There's no need to make too many guesses. Zi Manluo's body instantly stiffened. She hurriedly bowed and apologized, My lord, please forgive me. I have overstepped my boundaries. Prince Lien nodded slightly and said, Yi Ningguang has already completed his mission. You will need to complete the next mission. No matter who met Zhen Hong, they would do their best to defeat her. Although she had successfully entered the top 9 and was qualified to receive the baptism of the Blood Flame Sacred Tree, she was still unable to do so. However, everyone's ranking was different, and their positions under the Blood Flame Sacred Tree were also different. We must make her rank lower so that she will receive less benefits when she receives the baptism of the Sacred Tree. Zi Manluo and the other 2 bowed and acknowledged the order. Prince Lien continued, If you meet Tianqing, you won't be his match. But you have to try your best to withstand a few more moves to exhaust his strength. Also, don't forget to use the flame and death words. As long as you can do this, your mission will be completed, and I will reward you. Hearing this, the eyes of the 3 brightened. They had vaguely understood something. Just as they had guessed, Prince Lien already knew that they were not Tianqing's match. He had asked them to attack Tianqing, not to defeat him. Instead, he wanted them to use the black, death, and flame skills when they fought with Tianqing. As long as they could do this, they would be rewarded. The 3 of them immediately understood that Prince Lien had other plans. The key was the 3 words divine formula. Although Yi Ningguang had lost to Ji Tianqing. However, he had successfully used the black divine incantation on the arena. Next, as long as they met Ji Tianqing and successfully used the death and flame skills, their mission would be complete. When they thought of this, the 3 of them were even more impressed with Prince Lien's shrewdness and methods. They felt that this lord was really unfathomable. The 8 rounds of battles had finally ended. Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, Zi Manluo and the rest had successfully advanced to the next round. Including the lucky ones who had a bye, there were a total of 9 geniuses. They would compete for the final ranking later. As for the 8 eliminated geniuses, they would continue to battle in the arena to fight for the only place to advance. The third prince announced the rules. The 8 defeated geniuses could choose whether to participate in the battle to obtain the 10th place. The flaming wolf youth had already taken an elixir to stabilize his injuries. When the third prince's voice fell, he flew into the arena without hesitation. Obviously, he was determined to obtain the 10th place. The other 7 defeated geniuses instantly fell into hesitation. 3 of them were seriously injured and were close to fainting. They could no longer participate in the battle and could only give up regretfully. The other 4 were still in stable condition and had retained some of their strength. However, they had all seen the flaming wolf youth break through to the 6th stage in the arena. They had all witnessed the flaming wolf youth's strength and methods. Therefore, the 4 of them weighed the pros and cons for a moment. In the end, 2 of them gave up. There were only 2 geniuses left who still had hope for the 10th place. They went into the arena one by one and sparred with the flaming wolf youth. The result was as everyone had expected. The 2 young geniuses lost regretfully. The flaming wolf youth used his vigorous strength and tenacious battle intent to obtain the 10th place in the end. He finally had the qualifications to enter the blood flame secret realm and receive the sacred tree's baptism. After the duel ended, he glanced at Zhen Hong and silently bowed to him before leaving the dueling ring. Next, the final ranking battle began. The top 9 geniuses no longer drew lots to determine their opponents. Instead, they used a challenge system to determine their strength and ranking. Simply put, the 9 geniuses could challenge each other. As long as they were named, they would have to fight on the arena to determine the winner. If they refused to fight on the arena, they would lose a match. After the challenge ended, the final ranking would be determined according to the number of matches each person won. When the third prince announced the rules, the 8 geniuses were all eager to fight. Everyone's gaze was searching the various viewing platforms as they weighed their targets. Only Ji Tianqing's expression was indifferent as he stepped across the sky and landed on the arena. His body was as straight as a sword as he stood proudly on the arena. His hands were behind his back as he exuded a powerful aura. His gaze swept across the entire arena as he announced a few names in a sonorous voice. I want to challenge Gu Chunfeng, Shi Yuanlong, Qin Yun, Zi Manluo, a total of 7 people. Other than him and Zhen Hong, the other 7 geniuses were all named by him in public. This was equivalent to announcing in front of millions of people that I want to challenge all of you. I will definitely get the first place. All of you should obediently admit defeat. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 3050. When Ji Tianqing's voice sounded, the entire square was in an uproar. Close to 1 million God race people revealed shocked expressions and let out cries of disbelief. No one expected that he was actually so domineering. With an absolutely domineering attitude, he challenged all his opponents by name. This kind of thing rarely happened in the previous divine blood ceremony. The last time it happened was a few thousand years ago. However, geniuses who dared to challenge all their opponents like him were generally peerless monsters. Most likely, they would sweep the field. The million people, all the nobles, and powerhouses were all so excited that their blood surged, revealing expressions of incomparable anticipation. Of course, there were also many people who booed, criticizing and belittling Ji Tianqing. They all insisted that Ji Tianqing was trying to please the crowd with claptrap, and that he would lose all face in a moment. For example, Prince Duanmu thought so. On the ceremony stage, the third prince was all smiles, looking radiant with delight. He said to the second prince beside him, "Second royal brother, this prince told you before. When the final ranking battle comes, young Master Tianqing will definitely save time and challenge all his opponents in public. You see, this prince was indeed right, right? The second prince frowned and sighed helplessly. With his strength, making this choice is understandable. Of the 7 people challenged by Ji Tianqing, 3 were Prince Lian's people. The other 3 young geniuses were his confidants that he secretly nurtured. Only one was a noble descendant of the capital. He had always been loyal to the king's neutral faction. This result made the second prince very gloomy. Originally, he had more than 20 geniuses under his command participating in the grand competition. He did not expect that in the end, only 3 people entered the top 10. The effort and the return were not proportional at all. 100 breaths of time passed. Ji Tianqing stood alone on the stage, but no one went up to compete with him. The 7 geniuses who were called out all had ugly expressions. They were hesitating and weighing the pros and cons helpless. Ji Tianqing could only call out their names one by one. Since you all are unwilling to take the initiative to go up on the stage, then this prince will challenge you one by one. Gu Chunfeng. As he shouted Gu Chunfeng's name, a noble youth stood up on the southern viewing platform and answered with an embarrassed expression, "Young Master Tianqing, I admit defeat." This young genius was precisely the top dignitary of the capital city. His family did not cling to any prince and was only loyal to the king. They were the mainstay of the neutral faction. Gu Chunfeng had no enmity with Ji Tianqing. He had witnessed Ji Tianqing's fights with his own eyes, so he had a good understanding of Ji Tianqing's strength and methods. He knew very well that even if he forced himself to go up to the ring and compete with Ji Tianqing, he would only be defeated in seconds. If he were to be severely injured, it would affect his performance in the upcoming battles and cause his ranking to fall. Then the losses would outweigh the gains. Therefore, it was wise to admit defeat decisively. Many nobles and experts thought of these reasons and expressed their understanding of Gu Chunfeng's decision. However, the millions of commoners in the square were not happy and burst into a discussion. There were also many people who booed and sneered at Gu Chunfeng's decision. Everyone wanted to see a battle between geniuses. They were also looking forward to the appearance of a dark horse to defeat that arrogant fellow, Ji Tianqing. However, Gu Chunfeng directly admitted defeat. Wasn't this too cowardly? Couldn't he have some backbone? Couldn't he have a good fight with Ji Tianqing and let everyone have a good look? After Gu Chunfeng decisively admitted defeat, the third prince announced the result and recorded it. Then, Ji Tianqing continued to call out names. Shi Yuanlong. His loud voice spread throughout the square. Countless people looked towards the northern viewing platform, searching for Shi Yuanlong's figure. This person was a confidant of the second prince and was also one of the 10 heroes of the capital. His strength was not far from Xue Bufan and Bai Hao's. However, Xue Bufan and Bai Hao's ending was obvious to all. They were both defeated by Ji Tianqing in one move and did not even enter the top 10. Their situation was very tragic. After being called out by Ji Tianqing in public, Shi Yuanlong stood up with a gloomy face. Being stared at by countless people, he was embarrassed and ashamed. Although he really wanted to go on stage and fight with Ji Tianqing, even if he lost, he would not lose face. However, he had to consider the consequences. After being injured by Ji Tianqing, would he still be able to challenge others? If he ended up at the bottom of the top 9, wouldn't his loss be even greater? Therefore, he could only bow his head to reality and reply weakly, "I also admit defeat." Hearing his reply, many nobles and powerhouses nodded secretly to express their understanding. On the ceremony stage, the second prince also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this kid was rational enough and did not act rashly. However, the people in the square could not take it anymore and shouted even more emotionally. "Hey! Can't you geniuses have some backbone? All of you admit defeat and surrender. Why don't you just stop fighting and just use your mouth to rank? Is Tianqing that terrifying?" Can't you top geniuses make us look at you in a different light? This is too boring. Is anyone going to go on stage to fight? Under the agitation of the crowd, the people shouted and roared at the top of their lungs. At the same time, their impression of the young geniuses had plummeted. Chapter 30:51. In a short 20 breaths of time. At least 40 over nobles and powerhouses sent voice transmissions to the two princes to express their protest. Or put forward the corresponding ideas and suggestions. All in all, everyone only had one request. Hurry up and end this boring and awkward situation. Ji Tianqing stood on the stage alone, calling out the names of the young geniuses one by one, but he scared everyone until they admitted defeat. He was domineering and awe-inspiring. But where would the royal family put their face? The Bloodfire Divine Kingdom's young generation was so weak. Wasn't this slapping the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom's face? They had to think of a way to stop him. The second prince and third prince also had a headache. The two exchanged a glance, both revealing helpless bitter smiles. The challenge competition is like this. Young Master Tianqing wants to challenge everyone. We can't stop him either. After all, he didn't break the rules either. Yeah. Young Master Tianqing's strength is too strong. This is obvious to all. Those few young geniuses want to preserve their strength and are not willing to make meaningless sacrifices. This is also something within reason. Have us come forward to intervene? How do we stop it? Could it be, we have to announce in public that young Master Tianqing won 3 matches in a row and is already very tired, his stamina consumption is great. So, we have him leave the stage first and rest for a while. Isn't this nonsense? He didn't even move a finger. What stamina consumption? The two princes secretly communicated via voice transmissions, full of gloomy ridicule. Finally, the two brothers reached a consensus. Forget it. Ignore those nobles and old fellows. Pretend not to hear. Amen, hold on a little longer. Anyway, 3 people already admitted defeat. At most 1 or 2 more and it will be over. The 3 geniuses under Prince Lien's command have an eagerness to give it a try. They shouldn't admit defeat, right? This can work. At least let the commoners watch a few matches. Alright, let's do it like this. Hence, the challenge competition continued. It was still Ji Tianqing's roll call time. Next, Shang-Chi. Very unfortunately, Shang-Chi was still a person under the second prince. If he also opened his mouth to admit defeat, the 3 geniuses under the second prince would be wiped out in one fell swoop. Even though his strength reached the 6th level Divine Lord realm and his foundation was even deeper. Compared to Xue Bufan, Bai Hao, Shi Yuanlong, and the others, he was stronger. However, he did not have the slightest confidence that he could defeat Ji Tianqing. His first reaction was, of course, to admit defeat. But the most depressing thing was that he was the 4th person to be called out. If he was the first to be called out, he would simply admit defeat without any psychological burden. Now, the millions of God Race clansmen were making a ruckus, and the crowd was agitated. These young geniuses with illustrious reputations had greatly disappointed the common people. They were currently enduring criticism and humiliation. Even if he wanted to admit defeat, he had to muster up the courage and bear the enormous pressure. After hesitating for a long time, Shang-Chi finally braced himself and left the crowd, flying towards the arena. Ji Tianqing glanced at him in surprise but didn't say anything. The second prince furrowed his brows and cursed inwardly, Shang-Chi, that idiot, has he not considered the consequences of his impulsiveness? Tianqing doesn't have any relationship with you, so he won't show you any mercy. With that thought in mind, he was about to send a voice transmission to Shang-Chi to remind him. Who knew that Shang-Chi stood still on the arena without any intention of making a move? He actually cupped his hands towards Ji Tianqing and said in all seriousness, young Master Tianqing is in high spirits and has an extraordinary aura. You defeated me with just an invisible divine power. I am definitely not someone who doesn't know how to appreciate favors. I admit defeat here and thank you for saving my face." After saying that, Shang-Chi left the arena without even looking back. Ji Tianqing frowned, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. "What the hell? I didn't do anything at all. I defeated you with just an invisible divine power. And saved your face. Why are you so dramatic?" On the ceremony stage, the second prince was stunned for a moment before revealing a gratified smile. You're worth teaching." The millions of God-race citizens in the square also had dumbfounded looks on their faces. The crowd was quiet for a while before bursts of discussion broke out. Shang-Chi actually admitted defeat too. He has some backbone and finally went up the stage to spar. When did they spar? They didn't make a move at all. Didn't you hear what Shang-Chi said? They used an invisible divine power to resist before. He's not Tianqing's match. Wow! Indeed worthy of being a God-Lord powerhouse. The fight was formless and the victor was decided silently. Although what you all said makes sense, why do I feel that something is off? That's right. Even if they fought before, we can't understand it either. There's no appreciation value. Countless citizens discussed animatedly, only feeling that Shang-Chi and Ji Tianqing's fight was unfathomable. Even if someone felt that something was off, they did not dare to ask. All in all, Shang-Chi fooled many citizens and finally admitted defeat without being scolded by everyone. The third prince announced the result loudly. Ji Tianqing won 4 matches in a row. There were only 3 people left who were challenged by him. They were the 3 young geniuses under Prince Lien. Before Ji Tianqing could continue to call out names, Zi Manluo took the initiative to fly out of the viewing platform and towards the arena. Her face was gloomy as she stared sharply at Ji Tianqing. Her entire body was filled with a strong fighting spirit. The citizens in the arena originally thought that she would admit defeat after going up the stage like Shang-Chi. But no one expected that she would land on the arena and immediately pull out a divine whip surrounded by purple flames. After shouting, she attacked Ji Tianqing without even saying goodbye. Swoosh! 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 With a swing of the divine whip, dazzling divine light filled the sky. Purple flames surrounded the sky and covered the sun. Nearly 100 shadows of divine whips, carrying peerlessly swift and fierce might, enveloped the entire arena. Seeing this scene, the citizens who were uninterested and discussing animatedly earlier were instantly energized. Everyone's eyes lit up as they quickly looked up at the arena and watched the battle with anticipation. Great! Finally, someone has made a move. It's Zi Manluo. She's very strong. I wonder if she can defeat Tianqing. Regardless of whether she can defeat Tianqing or not, at least she dares to make a move. She's much stronger than the other geniuses. Who said that women are inferior to men? I think she's braver than the others. Zi Manluo, from today onwards, I'm your fan. I'll support you forever. It's time to make a name for yourself. As long as Zi Manluo defeats Tianqing, she can win supreme glory and surpass all the other geniuses. It wasn't just the commoners who were present. Even the nobles and powerhouses were looking forward to it. Everyone was hoping to see a miracle. However, this was destined to be an extravagant hope. Even though Zi Manluo went all out and used the flame divine formula to release the most violent power, Su Mo's attack was still not enough. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. He raised his fists and punched out with all his might. Boom! Crack! 2 incomparably huge shadows of dragons and elephants carried supreme divine power that could suppress the ages and crush the heavens and the earth. They destroyed all the divine light shadows with a loud bang. The purple flames that filled the sky dissipated on the spot. Ziman Luo also felt as though she had been struck by lightning. Her body curled up into a ball and she was sent flying 10 miles away. Ordinary people might not be able to see it, but these geniuses could see it clearly. The dragon-elephant phantom did not touch Ziman Luo, but a formless divine might crush Ziman Luo's divine body. Prince Lien couldn't expose him on the spot due to his status. The two young geniuses were close friends with Ziman Luo. It was only natural that they would seek justice for her. Hearing their shouts, many nobles and experts came to their senses. Everyone recalled the scene from before and understood the whole story. Countless people looked at the ceremonial stage to see how the two princes would handle this. The second prince frowned and thought to himself, Tianqing is really ruthless. He actually destroyed Ziman Luo's divine body. This is offending Prince Lien to the extreme. However, I do admire this kid's way of doing things. Anyway, he has already formed a deadly feud with Prince Lien. Of course, he'll do his best to take revenge. The third prince was also very worried. He sighed and said, Sigh, I've been advising him not to make an enemy out of Prince Lien. Now, it seems that he didn't listen to me at all. Instead, he's taking revenge even more seriously. However, since it had already happened, he still had to think of a way to deal with it. Therefore, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a stern expression and asked, Tianqing, someone accused you of violating the rules of the arena. After Ziman Luo admitted defeat, you even severely injured her. How do you explain this matter? Ji Tianqing had already retracted the dragon-elephant phantom. With his hands behind his back, he replied calmly, This is not an accusation, but a slander. I strictly abide by the rules of the arena. How did I break the rules? The third prince said expressionlessly, The rules of the arena competition state that external forces are not allowed and no one is allowed to die. Ziman Luo was severely injured by you. Her divine body was destroyed but she didn't die. In this case, you indeed didn't break the rules. However, the problem is that after Ziman Luo admitted defeat, she was still injured by you. Ji Tianqing explained again, everyone saw that when Ziman Luo admitted defeat, I had already stopped. As for the formless divine power that destroyed her divine body, it was the aftereffect of this remarkable power. It couldn't be prevented from erupting. My cultivation isn't high enough. Currently, I still can't control it as I wish. I've made a fool of myself in front of everyone. As soon as he said that, many commoners, nobles and experts stopped pursuing the matter. However, how could the two young geniuses beside Prince Lien believe his words? Bullshit. It's obvious that you used a dirty trick to injure Ziman Luo on purpose. Tianqing. Don't try to twist the truth. Don't think of getting away with it. The two young geniuses were filled with righteous indignation. They accused Ji Tianqing ferociously. Ji Tianqing looked at them indifferently. He curled his lips and said, In the arena competition, swords have no eyes. I've already shown mercy by not killing her. Since she dared to enter the arena, she should have been prepared to be severely injured. She can only blame herself for overestimating herself and not admitting defeat in time. If she had admitted defeat directly like the previous few, how would she have ended up like this? After saying that, he added another sentence with a cold smile. Right, I'm going to challenge the two of you next. If you don't want to end up like Ziman Luo, admit defeat now. Hearing these words, the two young geniuses were instantly enraged to the point that smoke was coming out of their 7 orifices. However, in the eyes of the others, Ji Tianqing's words were not without reason. Especially the 4 young geniuses who admitted defeat. They all nodded in agreement and rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, I was smart enough to admit defeat directly. Although face is important, our lives are more important. Man Luo is a living example. Whoever dares to laugh at us for surrendering is an idiot. The two young geniuses were hopping mad. They insisted that Ji Tianqing was abusing his position to avenge a private grudge. The third prince had no choice but to step forward and announce the result with a dignified expression. Everyone, please be silent. As the host and supervisor of this grand ceremony, I will announce the result. Tianqing did not violate the rules of the arena competition. His words and actions did not cross the line. The challenge competition will continue. Those who participate in the following battles, please be careful. On the surface, it sounded like the third prince was impartial in dealing with the problem. However, in reality, he was helping Ji Tianqing to absolve himself of any wrongdoing. The two young geniuses were unconvinced. However, they could not do anything to the third prince. They looked at Prince Lien for help. Prince Lien's expression was dark. His gaze was gloomy as he sent a few instructions. After the two young geniuses listened carefully, they nodded their heads and complied. When they looked at Ji Tianqing again, their eyes were filled with resentment and killing intent. Fengyun Reading Network. Chapter 3053. The two young geniuses gave up. The third prince had already announced the results. They could not continue to pester him. The two could only fly up the stage and take the pieces of flesh and blood that were scattered on the ground and Manluo's divine spark away. Prince Lien exhorted the two of them, as well as the changes in their eyes, all fell into Ji Tianqing's eyes. Although this was just a very small detail. But Ji Tianqing keenly sensed that the two young geniuses' eyes changed. Prince Lien must have exhorted something. In this arena competition, Prince Lien was unwilling to be left out. He must be playing some tricks and schemes. Very soon, the plaza and the stands quieted down. The challenge continued. Ji Tianqing looked coldly at the two young geniuses and asked in a deep voice, Shi Yunxiao, Sui Tianqi, which one of you will go first? The two were called out, but they were not in a hurry to go up the stage to challenge. They looked at each other, their expressions very solemn. Their eyes were also very complicated. Yunxiao, you go up first. No. Brother Tianqi, you go up first. As long as you can complete the mission, I can take care of the aftermath. Yunxiao. Have you really thought it through? Sui Tianqi looked at Shi Yunxiao very emotionally. His heart and hands were trembling. Shi Yunxiao nodded solemnly and said through voice transmission, Brother Tianqi, one of us has to sacrifice to complete the Lord's orders. You have a family and clan, and I'm alone. So, I'm the most suitable to cover the rear. Sui Tianqi's eyes were somewhat red. His heart was heavy as he said in a choked voice, Yunxiao, I will remember your friendship in my heart for the rest of my life. That's enough. Shi Yunxiao nodded and patted his shoulder with a smile. Brother Tianqi, go. Sui Tianqi did not say anything else and nodded heavily. Then, he turned and flew across the sky, landing on the stage. Swoosh! Sui Tianqi stood still on the stage, 1,000 feet away from Ji Tianqing, facing off with a murderous aura. His entire body flickered with purple light as he wore a set of dark purple armor. He held a purple heavy sword that was tinged with black as he stared fixedly at Ji Tianqing. Brat! You are vicious, cruel, tyrannical, arrogant, and despicable. Sui Tianqi angrily glared at Ji Tianqing and fiercely said, In this battle, you are no longer challenging me, but I am taking revenge on you. I want to avenge Manluo and kill you, you bastard. Sui Tianqi cursed with righteous indignation. His body emitted a murderous aura that soared to the sky, and a bloody light lingered around him. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and the corners of his mouth curled into a playful sneer. So, you want to have a duel with this monarch in public, regardless of life and death? Sui Tianqi furrowed his brows and quickly shut his mouth. Ji Tianqing continued, "All right, Ben Jun will give you this opportunity. You want to take revenge for Zi Manluo, right? You shall sign a life and death contract in front of everyone as proof." You. Sua Tianqi's eyebrows twitched violently from the provocation. His face turned green and white, revealing an incomparably ashamed and resentful expression. He was just saying it. He had never thought of signing a life and death contract. If he really wanted to have a life and death duel with Ji Tianqing, then he would be courting death. His outcome would definitely be 10 times worse than Zi Manluo's. However, Ji Tianqing caught his words and looked at him with contempt, making him unable to back down. What could he do? He couldn't possibly swallow the words he had just said back into his stomach, right? Sua Tianqi, what are you still standing there for? Ji Tianqing sneered when he saw him standing there without moving. Weren't you filled with righteous indignation and your blood boiling just now? Now, you want to be a coward? Roar! You're courting death. Sua Tianqi could no longer suppress his murderous intent. With a furious roar, he brandished his sword and charged toward Ji Tianqing. Heavenly Fiend Death Star Slash. Sua Tianqi roared furiously. He held the purple-black heavy sword with both hands and brandished it wildly without holding back. The purple-black sword light covered the sky and covered the sun. At this moment, he burned his divine blood and used a secret technique to stimulate his potential, erupting with 3 times his combat strength. The entire arena space was filled with billions of purple-black divine flames, filled with an incomparably chilling aura of death. The thousands of purple-black sword lights were like the blades of death from the underworld. They turned into violent hurricanes and enveloped Ji Tianqing's figure. Such a gorgeous scene. The countless deity race citizens in the plaza were dazzled by the sight. They revealed astonished expressions. Many people exclaimed, "Oh my God! What a gorgeous divine technique! What a powerful and terrifying aura of death! I always thought that grayness and coldness represented death. I didn't expect death to be so gorgeous." Sua Tianqi's strength and foundation are stronger than the 10 heroes of the royal city. His understanding of divine abilities and secret techniques is also deeper. If Tianqing can easily neutralize such a powerful divine ability and secret technique, then he deserves to be called the strongest. If Tianqing is not seriously injured, then Sua Tianqi's divine technique will be defeated. Let's wait and see. Under the gaze of millions of people, Ji Tianqing was in the boundless domain of death. He unhurriedly raised his palms and met the blades of death that blotted out the sky. Sky-piercing finger. Sky dragon palm. A scene that left countless people dumbfounded appeared. Ji Tianqing was actually multitasking. His hands were performing different divine abilities at the same time. His left hand pinched the fingers of a sword and pierced out a dazzling golden divine light. It was like a giant sword that tore apart the boundless darkness. His right hand bloomed with 7-colored divine light, and a palm shadow as huge as a mountain struck out, crushing the purple-black sword lights that filled the sky. Only "kacha" and "rumble" sounds could be heard, echoing endlessly between heaven and earth. The entire arena shook violently, and the sky blue shield also fluctuated wildly, rippling with layers of ripples. The light of death that shrouded heaven and earth was quickly dispersed by the divine golden light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The purple-black sword lights that filled the sky were also shattered into billions of pieces by the giant palm. Without a doubt, Sua Tianqi's divine ability had been defeated. He was also struck by Ji Tianqing's finger. A huge bloody hole appeared in his chest, and purple-black blood spurted out. Then, he was struck by the giant palm. Blood gushed out of his mouth as he flew backward in a sorry state. While he was still retreating in midair, a bloody line appeared in the middle of his body, and he was split into 2 halves. Plop! The 2 halves of his body fell from the sky onto the arena. Purple blood splattered all over the ground, and finally rolled to the edge of the arena. Victory and defeat had been decided, and the result was obvious. Ji Tianqing was unscathed, but Sui Tianqi was defeated miserably and had his divine body destroyed. Fortunately, only his divine body was destroyed. His divine spark was severely damaged, and cracks appeared on it. He was lucky enough to keep his life. His outcome was similar to Zimonluo's. He would need to recuperate in seclusion for more than 100 years before he could fully recover. Soon, the arena regained its clarity, and the deafening noise also dissipated. Sui Tianqi's divine spark flew out from half of his body. He shouted in panic, "I admit defeat." Feng Yun Reading Network. Chapter 3054. Sui Tianqi felt relieved after using the voice of his soul to admit defeat. His tense soul finally relaxed. He thought to himself, "Damn bastard, he's really strong." Luckily, the rules of the arena competition restricted him, so I could keep my life. Now I've completed my mission and successfully engraved the death character on his body. The rest is up to Yunxiao. As he thought of this, he used his divine will to look at the eastern viewing platform and glanced at Shi Yunxiao. Then, he couldn't hold on any longer and fell unconscious. The third prince announced the result loudly. Ji Tianqing won 6 consecutive victories. Shi Yunxiao flew onto the arena expressionlessly, collected the 2 halves of Sui Tianqi's body and godhead, and sent them back to the viewing platform. When he handed the corpse and godhead to the guards, he stared at Sui Tianqi's godhead and muttered to himself, "Brother Tianqi, your mission is complete. Leave the rest to me." Finishing, he turned and flew towards the arena. His expression was emotionless, his eyes were calm like an ancient well, but his heart was filled with sorrow. At this moment, he was unafraid of death, and his whole body emitted a special and powerful aura. When he stood still on the arena, Ji Tianqing frowned, a cold light flashing through his eyes. This kid's aura, his current state, he's already determined to die. Ji Tianqing carefully observed Shi Yunxiao and thought to himself, "It's just an arena competition. He clearly knows that I won't kill him. At most, I'll destroy his body and beat him into a coma. Why is he so determined to die? Why is he so calm? Could it be that Prince Lien wants to play some trick and needs him to finish the last blow?" Of the 4 young geniuses under Prince Lien, 3 had already been defeated by Ji Tianqing. Shi Yunxiao was the last person, and he would lose without a doubt. After he was defeated, even if Prince Lien had any other schemes or tricks, it would be difficult to use them. Therefore, Ji Tianqing was sure. If Prince Lien wanted to play tricks, Shi Yunxiao would be the most important person. As for Yi Ningguang, Ziman Luo, and Sui Tianqi from before, they were all used to pave the way. At the thought of this, Ji Tianqing had a flash of inspiration as he suddenly thought of something. However, Shi Yunxiao saw that he was silent and seemed to have noticed something, so he didn't waste any more time and immediately attacked. Roar! He didn't use any divine weapons, but suddenly opened his palms and roared at the sky. He ignited his life's qi and blood, and burned his own soul, releasing a violent aura. Swoosh! Instantly, Shi Yunxiao's entire body emitted a bloody flame that soared into the sky. Like a 100-foot-tall torch, it lit up the entire square. His divine body and flesh was quickly burning and decomposing. It transformed into the purest divine power, causing the blood-red torch to grow taller and taller, its power becoming more and more turbulent. In the middle of the blood torch, there was a dark purple flame. That was Shi Yunxiao's divine soul fire. At the same time, it was his final kill. Battle spirits returned to the west, unhindered throughout the ages. Black Death Infernal Spirit, please go to reincarnation. An ancient roar came from the blood torch that covered the sky. It was full of tragic and murderous intent. At this moment, the nearly 1 million people in the square were affected by the invisible aura. Everyone stopped talking and shouting, and kept silent as they stared at the arena. Their expressions became solemn, and their hearts were heavy. Many people were weak and couldn't understand what Shi Yunxiao was doing. But everyone could feel that Shi Yunxiao was about to die. He had used some kind of ancient secret technique, sacrificing his own life, all for the sake of completing the most dazzling and powerful attack. After all, his divine body was disappearing quickly, and ashes were scattered all over the ground. On the arena, only Ji Tianqing and the blood torch were left. The nearly 1 million people of the God clan, the dignitaries, and the experts on the viewing platform. While their hearts were heavy and shocked, they also had many questions. What is Shi Yunxiao trying to do? It's just a martial arts competition. Tianqing won't kill him. Why is he sacrificing his life? He's using his life to use an ancient secret skill. Is he trying to kill Tianqing? These thoughts flashed through everyone's minds at the same time. The expressions of the two princes on the stage also changed abruptly. Their eyes were filled with shock. It's over. Shi Yunxiao is using his ultimate killing move. He would rather sacrifice his life to kill Tianqing. The third prince was filled with shock and anxiety. This must be Prince Lian's scheme. Even if he has to sacrifice Shi Yunxiao, he has to kill Tianqing on the spot. How ruthless. The second prince was also angry. He stared at Ji Tianqing anxiously, and his face was full of worry. Although he and Ji Tianqing had not formed an alliance. But at this moment, he definitely didn't want Ji Tianqing to be killed. Everyone's eyes were focused on the shocking blood fire and Ji Tianqing. At this moment, Ji Tianqing observed the blood-red torch for a while. He finally saw some clues, and his eyes lit up. Shi Yunxiao is burning his flesh and blood and igniting his divine soul flame. The blood fire is on the outside, and the divine soul flame is hidden inside. This is his ultimate killing move at the cost of his life. The divine soul flame is his trump card. But Shi Yunxiao should know very well that with his strength and realm, even if he uses this ultimate killing move, he can't kill me. So, before using this ultimate killing move, there must be some premeditation and foreshadowing. He had a premonition that death was imminent. Invisible forces in his divine body, and divine bloods in his body, were rampaging. They were 3 different types of invisible energy that had been hidden in his body for a long time. When the purple soul flames approached them, they became extremely active and violent. The 4 forces attracted and resonated with each other. They were about to explode. So that's how it is. As expected, those 3 fellows from before infected me with 3 different types of power. When the divine soul fire attacks, the 4 forces will explode at the same time. If my body explodes, my divine body, flesh, and Godhead will all be destroyed. I will die. Ji Tianqing was enlightened. He finally understood Prince Lian's scheme. Prince Lian, oh Prince Lian, you are so shrewd and scheming. You let 4 insignificant cannon fodders use divine powers of different attributes and combine them to become a sure kill skill. This method is so sinister that no one except me can detect it. This person is extremely sinister. As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianqing didn't have time to waste. The purple divine soul fire had already surrounded him. In the next moment, the 4 forces would combine and form the ultimate death skill. He didn't have time to think about how to get out of danger. At the moment of life and death, he instinctively activated the heaven-mending orb in his sea of consciousness and released endless white holy light. Swoosh! Suddenly, the dense holy white light exploded from his body and enveloped his whole body. The countless strands of purple divine soul fire were restrained by the powerful devouring power and couldn't riot anymore. The purple divine soul fire seemed to have a life of its own. Feeling the approaching danger, they all struggled violently to escape. However, how could they escape the devouring power of the heaven-mending orb? Hiss hiss hiss, with a soft sound, the countless strands of purple divine soul fire were swallowed by the heaven-mending orb and disappeared. Without the resonance of the purple divine soul fire, the three forces of black, death, and flame could not completely explode. Although the three forces were still trying to riot in Ji Tianqing's body. However, they were destined to be futile. Ji Tianqing was already out of danger. He was wrapped in a holy white light like a pure white cocoon. He floated quietly in the arena filled with blood and fire. He first controlled the heaven-mending orb to swallow the purple divine soul fire and suppress it inside the divine orb. Then, he used the power of the heaven-mending orb to remove the black, death, and flame in his body one by one. The three kinds of power were invisible, and they were mixed in his body and bloodline. It would be difficult for him to finish cleaning them in a short time. Therefore, the cocoon formed by the holy light floated in the air and did not move for a long time. Chapter 30:56. The square and the viewing platform were silent for 100 breaths of time. Until the blood and fire on the arena dissipated, the white cocoon disappeared, and Ji Tianqing's figure reappeared. Everything was over. The arena was clear again, and Ji Tianqing was safe and sound. It was only now that the millions of God-race citizens, countless dignitaries, and experts revealed looks of intense shock. Countless people smiled, shouted, and cheered excitedly. There were even countless people who clapped and cheered excitedly. Among them were the two princes on the stage. And Zhenhong and Ning Xiyuan on the northern viewing platform, who had been on tenterhooks. Just now, Ji Tianqing was wrapped in purple soul fire and fell into a sea of blood and fire. He was in a precarious situation. The two of them were also worried, and their hearts were tightly clenched. They hated that they could not bear the danger and pain for Ji Tianqing. Fortunately, it was all over. Ji Tianqing successfully resolved the crisis and appeared unscathed. The two girls were relieved, and their hanging hearts finally fell back into their stomachs. The cheers and applause of the audience shook the sky, and it lasted for 10 breaths of time without stopping. Ji Tianqing stood in the arena with an indifferent expression, ignoring the excited crowd. He looked coldly at the eastern viewing platform, and his eyes fell on Grand Prince Lien. The two of them looked at each other. Even though they were 10 miles apart, they could clearly see the coldness and killing intent in each other's eyes. There was no verbal communication between these two experts, and there was no need for provocation or ridicule. But both of them were well aware. Their hatred had grown and deepened to the point where they would not rest until one of them was dead. Moreover, both of them were extremely arrogant people. Neither of them would bow their heads and admit defeat. After the two of them looked at each other for a moment, Ji Tianqing's mouth curved into a mocking sneer. His meaning was obvious. So what if you are sinister? You can't beat me. You are not my opponent at all. Then, Ji Tianqing withdrew his gaze and ignored Grand Prince Lien. It was a simple and subtle action, but it made Grand Prince Lien unable to restrain his anger. His face turned ashen, and his fists cracked. If it were not for the fact that he was in public, he would have started a massacre to vent his anger. After taking a few deep breaths, he suppressed his boundless anger. There was no need for him to continue watching the battle. Staying at the scene would only make things worse. Thus, he stood up expressionlessly and left the viewing platform. Yi Ning Wang hurriedly took Zi Manluo and Zhou Tianqi's corpses and godheads and left dejectedly. Fortunately, everyone's attention was on Ji Tianqing. Even when Prince Lien quietly left, not many people noticed. At this moment, the third prince stopped clapping. The remaining participants can still go on stage to challenge. After all the challenges are over, the rankings will be based on their battle results. I repeat again, swords and sabers have no eyes on the arena. It's inevitable that there will be injuries. Please consider carefully. After he finished speaking, Ji Tianqing left the arena. He returned to the viewing platform with a calm expression. Zhen Hong and Ning Xiyuan quickly got up, held his arms, and helped him sit down. The two women were full of excitement, and their eyes were shining. They surrounded him and asked about his well-being, concerned about his injuries. Don't be like this. I'm not injured. Calm down. Ji Tianqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he saw them carefully caring for him. Only then did Zhen Hong and Ning Xiyuan realize that they had lost their composure. They were a little shy, and their cheeks were pink. Ji Tianqing looked at Zhen Hong and said with a smile, although the challenges will continue, there are only a few people left who can participate. Zhen Hong, as long as you don't have any accidents, you will definitely enter the top 3. Hearing this, Zhen Hong finally understood what Seiji was trying to do. No wonder you were the first to challenge. This is not your style at all. It turns out that you are helping me to get rid of the strongest opponents first. Young master, you are so good to me. Zhen Hong looked at Ji Tianqing with sincere eyes. She was so moved that she was about to cry and her heart was about to melt. Ning Xiyuan was also very envious of Zhen Hong. She admired and liked Ji Tianqing's kindness and strength from the bottom of her heart. Seeing the two women being so intimate with Ji Tianqing, countless people were envious and secretly sighed. Sigh. No wonder he can get the favor of two stunning beauties. Even if he has two beauties in his arms, they won't argue. If I had such monstrous talent and strength like him, not to mention two stunning beauties, I would definitely gather 108 beauties and open a huge harem. This was the inner thoughts of most of the Protoss. Unfortunately, no matter how envious they were of Ji Tianqing, they could only look at him and sigh. So, it's best for you to keep these rewards. Ji Tianqing had never lacked cultivation resources. He already had 30 billion divine stones and various other resources stored in his interspatial ring. Moreover, the heaven-mending pearl also had the 5 elements world, which could continuously produce origin stones. In addition to the 30 billion plus reward he had just received, he would not lack cultivation resources for many years to come. What he really lacked was a godly item like the blood flame sacred tree. Zhen Hong still insisted on giving the reward to Ji Tianqing. Ning Xiyuan also tried to persuade her. Only then did she gradually give up on the idea. She anxiously accepted the divine ring. The rewards were given out. Only the top few geniuses remained. They would enter the blood flame secret realm later to receive the baptism of the sacred tree. It was time for everyone else to leave the arena. Not only the million god race clansmen on the plaza, but also the countless nobles and experts on the 4 viewing platforms left one after another. After all, the blood flame secret realm was a forbidden ground. Without the king's permission, no one could enter. No one knew what happened to the geniuses in the secret realm. On the way out of the plaza, countless god race citizens were still whispering to each other and reminiscing about the exciting battle. A full 2 hours later, the huge and crowded crowd gradually left the plaza and merged into the royal city. At this time, the 2 princes led Ji Tianqing and the others towards the royal palace in the north. The group flew through the sky and quickly entered the royal palace. They landed outside the Soul Prayer Hall. The black brick and red tile Soul Prayer Hall was over 10,000 feet tall and majestic. However, its aura was too solemn and dignified, causing one's heart to feel heavy and oppressed. Compared to the golden and dazzling palaces around it, it was out of place. Normally, the Soul Prayer Hall was closed for a long period of time. It would only be opened when major priest activities were held or when the divine blood ceremony was held. This was because the entrance to the Blood Flame secret realm was in the depths of the Soul Prayer Hall. The hall was heavily guarded. There were also hidden sentries underground and in the palace. They were all Sir God experts. Not only that, but the Soul Prayer Hall had also set up many top-grade divine arrays. Its defense was very strong. After the group arrived, they stood in the plaza outside the hall. Ji Tianqing, Zhen Hong, and the others waited patiently. The two princes entered the hall and took over from the imperial guards guarding the royal palace. There was no other way. The 800 imperial guards guarding the Soul Prayer Hall and the Dark Moon Commander were all under the direct command of the king. Even the two princes had no right to command the imperial guards and the Dark Moon Commander.